Chapter 878. Gu Mingming was not a person who placed great importance on power, but she was not a fool either. Oakley's actions today were obviously overstepping his authority. Gu Mingming frowned and did not go up the stage. Meanwhile, everyone on and off the stage were already kneeling down, waiting for Gu Mingming's command. Leah whispered into Gu Mingming's ear. The hunt is an important matter, it cannot be delayed. As for the rest, we can talk about it later. Gu Mingming hesitated for a moment before nodding her head. Elvis lifted her up onto the stage. Then, Gu Mingming turned around to face the crowd and said, "Warriors, congratulations on passing the test of the harsh winter and becoming an even more outstanding existence. Now it's time for you to display your talents and abilities to the beast deity. The first hunt after winter shall begin now." Hundreds responded to her call. Just as Gu Mingming finished her sentence, deafening roars resounded from below the stage, one after another. Elvis shook the shiny black fur on his body. His huge and burly body was like a king under the scorching sun, emitting an undeniable sense of oppression, causing everyone to subconsciously sharpen. Under his majesty, no one dared to take even half a step forward in front of him. With Elvis in the lead, a group of tribesmen dashed out. Leah never had to participate in this kind of hunt. Elvis alone was enough to control the entire scene. Gu Mingming's gaze landed on Oakley, who also did not participate in the hunt. She did not say a word and just watched quietly. Oakley did not panic, he just bowed to Gu Mingming, then said, "Does the great messenger have something to ask? Why don't we move to the meeting hall?" Gu Mingming did not reply. She just turned around and walked out. Winter had just ended. The snow had not even melted and the ground was very muddy. Leah carried Gu Mingming in his arms, saying dotingly, "The ground is cold, it's still more comfortable in my arms, right?" Gu Mingming smiled coquettishly and nodded, not saying a word. She knew that Leah was afraid that she would be in a bad mood because of Oakley, so he was purposely teasing her. The meeting hall was not far behind the deity altar. After about 5 minutes, Gu Mingming was already sitting on the stone chair covered with white tiger skin. Leah started a fire, boiling water at the side for Gu Mingming to drink. Oakley, on the other hand, was standing right below Gu Mingming, looking back at her with his head held high, not avoiding her gaze at all. This winter, Sauter has a total of 3 litters of cubs. Another snow fox female is pregnant and should be a female. Due to the method of food storage taught by the Great Messenger, no males died during the winter because they were treated as food. Only 7 died because their bodies were too weak to withstand the low temperature. The females of the Snow Fox clan were more delicate than the other clans. That was why I told the females to stay at home to avoid getting sick. This was also the reason why the Lord Messenger did not see any females today. However, all the males had come out, and the scene was still very spectacular. I wonder if Sir Envoy is satisfied with my arrangements? Gu Mingming chuckled. "Yeah, you have governed Sauter very well." Oakley lowered his head and maintained his faint smile. "Thank you for your compliment, Great Messenger. But why didn't I see Barit and Oriton just now?" Chapter 879. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "My guards will listen to your arrangements." If Barit and Oakley had a personal relationship and returned to St. Nazir after listening to Oakley's instigation, Gu Mingming might believe it. But that foodie Oriton, who had not eaten Li's cooking for an entire winter, would he return to St. Nazir obediently without eating a meal? Who would believe that? Oakley lowered his head, and with a respectful and cautious look he said, "If the Great Messenger thinks that my arrangements are inappropriate, then I will immediately send someone to chase after the 2 guards." Gu Mingming took a deep breath and said, "Oakley, I cherish the friendship we once had. If you have any difficulties, you can tell me directly and I will definitely help you if I can. But I don't like people playing tricks behind my back. If anyone tries to lead me by the nose, then be prepared to be bitten by me. I don't wish for the day to come when my poisonous fangs are pointed at my former friends." Oakley's expression did not even change. He was still respectful, calm and collected as he said, "I am the Great Messenger's most loyal subject. No matter what I do, I will always put the Great Messenger as my top priority. Didn't the Great Messenger also believe in this point and hand Sauter over to me to manage?" Just like what the great messenger said. Don't use those you doubt and don't suspect those you use. Since you use me, why are you doubting me? Gu Mingming frowned and did not say a word. She just looked at him quietly. Oakley looked up and stared straight into Gu Mingming's eyes, asking, or could it be that the great messenger has suddenly changed her mind and wants to hold the authority tightly in her hands? Then the great messenger can just say it directly. Oakley will naturally listen to the great messenger's wishes and hand over the authority to you. After all, Oakley can also understand the logic of kill the fox and dogs when they are dead. Why do you have to twist my words like this? You know that's not what I meant. Gu Mingming's heart turned cold. The shy and cunning Oakley from before had completely disappeared, right? Since when did the only thing left between them was mutual suspicion and jealousy? Although they were not that close in the past, they were at least friends, right? Now, kill the fox and dogs when they are dead? He actually used these 8 words to describe their relationship. Did I say something wrong? Oakley was still very calm. Not a trace of emotion could be seen in his eyes. He said calmly, when the messenger wanted to return to Saint Nazir and needed someone to guard Sauter, she handed the turbulent Sauter over to Barit and me. Now that Sauter has regained its peace and prosperity, you came back to blame me for dispatching your guards. If you want to pin a crime on someone, you can always find a pretext. Actually, you don't have to go through all this trouble. You just have to say one word, and I'm just a mere level 2 orc. Do I even have the leeway to resist? Oakley's words made Gu Mingming feel like her heart was stuffed with a ball of cotton. She wanted to refute, but found that she had nothing to say. Back then, it was a fact that she had left a turbulent Sauter to him and Barit, or even to say that it was turbulent was a euphemism. She had predicted that Cole would turn back and attack, so she left Oakley and Barit as bait. This was what she owed them, and she had to pay them back. If you just want power, I won't interfere. But you should know that there are some principles that must be adhered to, and some bottom lines that cannot be broken. Chapter 880. After Oakley finished speaking, he bowed and left. Gu Mingming leaned into Li's arms tiredly. She pinched the bridge of her nose, feeling a headache coming on. Li's hands pressed lightly on Gu Mingming's temples, massaging them with just the right amount of strength. He said softly, "Why do you have to worry about such dirty things? Can't you just leave it to Elvis and me to handle?" Gu Mingming sighed and said, "You two are too harsh if possible. I still want to pull Oakley back. After all, we were once friends." Leah kissed the top of Gu Mingming's head and said, "Silly girl, you are too soft-hearted. That's why you are so easily manipulated by others." Gu Mingming looked up into Li's eyes and said, "Leah, I am scared." "What are you scared of?" Li's long and narrow eyes were like a gentle breeze, gently caressing Gu Mingming's heart. "I am scared that Cole will snatch away the people around me one by one. And in the end, they will all become his." Gu Mingming buried her head into Li's chest and said in a low voice, "If the enemies standing in front of me in the future are all my family and friends, what should I do? Can I bear to do it? One Qixian has already made things difficult for me. Now it's Oakley, what's next? Will it be Barit or Oriton? Will it be Sandy or Ian? Or, will it be you or Elvis?" Leah chuckled and said, "Mingming, you must have confidence in yourself. The people around you are not so easily snatched away. At least Elvis and I will definitely not leave you, isn't that right?" Gu Mingming nodded but did not say a word. Yes, Elvis and Leah would never leave her. But what if in the end, there was no one else besides the two of them by her side? What should she do? What if Huda and the rest also stood by Cole's side like Qixian in the future? What should she do? Before winter, Sandy's attitude towards Cole was already not quite right when she received her at the city gates. She wanted to ask then but could not find a suitable opportunity. Soon after, winter came and the two of them did not have the time to ask again. She felt an unbearable pain in her chest, and her breathing became difficult. What if, after Qixian, Sandy was also standing on Cole's side? What was she going to do? The first hunt led by Elvis ended in the afternoon. It had to be said that Sauter's Snow Fox tribe was an old tribe with a strong foundation. Their battle power and teamwork abilities were much higher than Saint Nazir's tribe, which only had a few years of history. As such, this first hunt was very satisfying for Elvis, and it was a good exercise for him. The prey offered to the beast deity was also bigger and better than the ones hunted in St. Nazaire in the past. But as the tribe leader, Oakley went to handle the complicated ceremonies, while Gu Mengmeng and Leah returned to the stone castle. They were prepared to cook the first prey of the year after Elvis and the three little ones returned, as a way to celebrate the start of the new year. Before she even saw them, she could already hear the three of them discussing excitedly. Such noise broke Gu Mingming's gloomy mood. She walked out of the door with a gentle smile on her lips. Looking at the father and son returning in the sunset glow, the lines on Gu Mingming's face were as gentle as the afterglow of the setting sun. It was warm but not blinding, making one yearn for it and feel attached to it. Chapter 881. Elvis pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and kissed the top of her head. It was as if he missed her too much after not seeing her for the entire afternoon. After a long while, Elvis finally let go of Gu Mingming and hugged her into the stone castle. Kanwu pestered Gu Mingming to tell him how brave he was today, while Jiaoyu complained about Kanwu's exaggerations from time to time, causing Kanwu to stomp his feet in anger. Huda put on the airs of a big brother and stepped out to balance the situation when Kanwu and Jiaoyu quarreled too much. As for Qi Xian, he always acted like a spectator and stayed out of the matter. He did not participate and just watched. After Leah finished preparing the food, the whole family finally had their first meal of the new year. Gu Mingming finally understood why the elderly cared so much about the word reunion. She had been in the beast world for a year. She did not know if her parents in that world had realized that this extra daughter of theirs had disappeared. If they had, would they be worried for her? Would they also search for her whereabouts? Or rejoicing that such an extra existence had finally disappeared in the boundless world? They no longer had to worry about her suddenly appearing and becoming someone's burden. Mummy. Kanwu put down his bowl and chopsticks and inched closer to Gu Mingming. He said coquettishly, "Can I bring some food to Master Burke?" Gu Mingming was taken aback. Burke? Wasn't he? She looked at Leah, only to see him smiling helplessly. That was just a show. Why would I be serious? If I really killed Burke, wouldn't Kanwu risk his life to fight me? So, Gu Mingming asked. Leah shrugged. Although I did not communicate with him beforehand, that fellow is still considered smart. When I appeared that day, he immediately understood what I meant and cooperated with me in a fight. However, he was clearly not my opponent, so I knocked him out. My attack was a bit heavy, and his injuries were not light, but he wouldn't die. When Oriton and the rest went over to deal with the aftermath, they arranged for him to be sent back to Sauter to recuperate. Then why didn't you tell me then? Gu Mingming had always thought that Burke had really been beaten to death by Leah. Leah put on an innocent look. Why would an unimportant person mention it? Gu Mingming chuckled. Leah was a jealous person. He did not wish to mention any male's name in front of her. She was already used to it. Without asking further, Gu Mingming took a huge stone bowl and filled it with meat for Kanwu. Go. Kanwu was overjoyed. He was grinning from ear to ear. He called Huda and Jiaoyu and ran out. Kanwu was extremely happy. He smiled so widely that one's eyes could not see of his eyes. Of Gu Jianwu's eyes. Qishuan's eyes were filled with envy, but he knew that he was not in a position to ask Gu Mingming to share some food with someone important. He was afraid that they would rather throw away the food than let that person have a bite. Gu as of Li as of him of Gu Gu of Mingming of. Gu Mingming was sensitive and sensitive. She naturally noticed that Qishuan's expression was not quite right the moment Kanwu said he wanted to send meat to Burke. To tell the truth, if it was for Cole, she would rather throw the food away than let him have a bite. But for her son. Chapter 882. Can I also do that? Qi Xian was clearly surprised, so surprised that he appeared rather agitated. Gu Mingming chuckled and rubbed Qishuan's head. Of course you can. You are my son. What is there not to do in this family? Actually, Qi Xian was already a fully grown adult now. Gu Mingming's intimate actions made him feel rather uncomfortable. But at the same time, he also felt a little greedy and satisfied. Amidst the conflict, he survived in the cracks, enjoying the suffocating and conflicted pleasure. "Thank you, Mummy," Qi said in a small voice. Then he lifted his bowl and bowed before leaving. After the 4 children left, Gu Mingming sighed. The smile on her face gradually faded, leaving behind a trace of loneliness. Elvis used his index finger to gently rub the area between Gu Mingming's brows. His pair of eyes that were supposed to be sharp were now filled with a gentle glow, as if he could not wait to present the softest thing in the world to this little girl in front of him. He said in the most soothing voice, "Children have grown up and will eventually have to go out and explore the world. So try to divert your attention away from them and focus it on Leah and me. How about that?" Gu Mingming felt as if her heart had been scratched by a kitten. She looked at Elvis, who was seriously fighting over her with his 4 sons, and could not help but smile. Her smile was filled with a tinge of helplessness and sweetness. From the moment their sons were born, this fellow had treated the 4 of them as his #1 love rivals. Now that their sons were all grown up, why did he feel as if he had finally overcome all his hardships? "Xiaoming." Elvis's voice was a little hoarse, like hot sand grinding against iron. It had a bewitching quality to it. "When we went hunting today, I observed that Huda and the rest should be evolving soon." Gu Mingming's body stiffened. "Will it hurt like Qi?" Elvis shook his head. "No, their bones have already evolved. Their bones have evolved, so they won't be in so much pain anymore." Gu Mingming finally relaxed and heaved a sigh of relief. Elvis carelessly twirled Gu Mingming's hair. "I wanted to say that once they complete their evolution, they will have to move out and live independently." "You." Gu Mingming bit her lower lip. Her son was only a little over a year old. In the modern world, he was still at the age where he would be hugged in his arms and nibbled on a pacifier. But she had to face the situation of her son becoming independent and moving out of the house. Everything in the beast world was really fast-paced. She was only pregnant for a few weeks, and the child could only be raised for a year. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't disappointed, but Gu Mingming knew that as a qualified mother, she had to learn to let go at the appropriate time and accept the fact that her child was an individual. She could not force her own desires onto her child. So Gu Mingming nodded and said, "I know, I will be mentally prepared." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's little face and said, "Don't worry, even if they become independent, you won't lose them. Just like Qi, he will come back to accompany you every few days." Gu Mingming smiled helplessly. "I'm just afraid that when the child grows up, he will be like the husky in the neighborhood. If I let go, he will disappear." Elvis had not heard the term husky for a long time. Thinking about how she used to tease him with this term, those sweet memories immediately occupied the corner of his lips. The gentleness in his gaze spread into ripples. Elvis said happily, "If they dare not go home to see you, I'll break their legs." Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Susu was trying hard to save her chapters. "Babies, why aren't you saying that you love me?" Chapter 883. That night, Sauter hosted a bonfire party. After all, it was the start of the new year and Gu Mingming, the messenger of the beast deity, had to attend. The biggest bonfire and the supreme stone chair belonged to Gu Mingming alone. Bonfire parties were usually organized by families, meaning that there would be as many bonfires as there were females. Those without a family could go to the side of the females they were pursuing to make their presence known. If they did well, they would be part of a family from that night onwards. However, under such circumstances, Oakley could only maintain his role as the host, arranging and handling the affairs. A few females tried to express their goodwill to him, but were all brushed off by him. Kanwu obtained Gu Mingming's approval and brought Burke to their bonfire to play together. The 3 young ones were still immersed in the day's hunt, and their excitement had not subsided. They pestered Burke to the point that he wanted to talk to Gu Mingming a few times, but could not find the time. Gu Mingming was happy and relaxed. She knew that the 3 young ones were doing it on purpose, because once Burke really started a conversation with her, he would never have the chance to sit in front of her, no matter if she ignored him or not. The two males in her family would never allow a male with ulterior motives to make his presence known in front of her. Elvis continued to act as a leather sofa with constant temperature, protecting Gu Mingming tightly. Leah continued to prepare the food while Gu Mingming listened to her three sons' heroic achievements with great interest. Her gaze occasionally drifted to the surroundings, but she could not find Qi Xian. He had accompanied her for a meal in the afternoon, so he must have stayed to accompany Cole at night. Sigh, he was clearly her own son, but he treated Cole as family. Could it be that she had jinxed Qi Xian? Could it be that Stockholm Syndrome had really befallen Qi Xian? Sigh, at this moment, Gu Mingming really wished that she was Wang Xiaoxin. If she had studied psychology, would she not be so helpless? Gu Mingming. A soft voice rang from behind Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming turned around in response and met Sandy's sparkling eyes. Yeah, every time she saw Sandy after winter, Gu Mingming would feel as if she had gone to Korea for liposuction and plastic surgery. She had seen her once last year, but she could not help but be shocked when she saw her again this year. Seriously. Whiteness covers all ugliness. Fatness destroys everything. All fat people were potential stocks. When they slimmed down, they would look so beautiful that they would be afraid of themselves. Standing up from Elvis's arms, Gu Mingming took the initiative to pull Sandy's little hand over to sit beside the bonfire. Bode and Colin looked serious and cautious as they guarded Sandy's side as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They looked a little scary. Gu Mingming turned to look at them. Why? Are you afraid that I'll eat Sandy? Bode nodded subconsciously. When he came back to his senses, he immediately shook his head. He wanted to explain, but when he saw Sandy rolling her eyes, he immediately shut up and lowered his head, not daring to say a word. Gu Mingming could not be bothered with them. She just took Lee's roasted meat and passed it to Sandy. Here, you can eat first. Sandy smiled sweetly. She took the barbecued meat but didn't eat it immediately. Her face was bright red under the light of the fire. She looked especially shy. Gu Mingming, I have something to tell you. What is it? Chapter 884. Gu Mingming was stunned for 3 seconds before breaking into a grin. Really? You're pregnant? Sandy blushed and nodded. Yeah, I'm pregnant. It's yours? Gu Mingming almost fell over. She shook her head. No, this is not scientific. Sandy glared at Gu Mingming. It's your godson. Right. Gu Mingming remembered that at the start of last year, when he brought Hutta and his brothers out, he told Sandy that if Sandy gave birth to a daughter, she would choose one of her sons as her partner. If she gave birth to a son, he would acknowledge Gu Mingming as his godmother and become sworn brothers with Hutta and his brothers. Now that Sandy was pregnant, it would naturally be her godson. But how do you know it must be a son? What if it's my daughter-in-law? Sandy's pregnancy was a piece of good news to Gu Mingming. In a time filled with troubles, it was like a stream of fresh air. On one hand, Gu Mingming had a good relationship with Sandy. On the other hand, she really needed a piece of good news to calm her emotions. Hence, she paid extra attention to Sandy's tummy. Sandy chuckled. You're still the same. You know some magical things like the back of your hand, but you're still so clueless when it comes to common sense. Gu Mingming was not annoyed by Sandy's teasing. She nodded. You're a pregnant woman. You're the boss. Whatever you say is right. Sandy's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. She did not know why. She had been in a bad mood ever since she got pregnant. But whenever she was with Gu Mingming, she would feel especially good. If it's a female, the pregnancy period is about 10 months. But look at me. I can already see a slight bump in my tummy after just 20 days. If Sandy had not mentioned it, Gu Mingming would have thought that she was just a little bloated from eating too much. But now that she explained it, yeah, that tummy was indeed bulging. Gu Mingming reached out her hand to touch Sandy's tummy. So this baby is? Bodes. Sandy's gaze was very gentle. After getting pregnant, she was filled with motherly radiance. If it's a bear, even a male would need about 91 to 95 days. It's impossible for it to bulge so quickly. So this baby should be a junior leopard. Gu Mingming gave Bode an approving look and said, Not bad, Bode, congratulations. Bode had a silly smile on his face as he scratched the back of his head. His face was flushed, and his gaze was fixed on Sandy from beginning to end with a doting and loving gaze. Gu Mingming clasped her hands together and prayed. She closed her eyes and said, "In the name of the messenger, I pray to the mighty beast deity. Please bless this little life with peace and blessings. Let him grow up strong, happy and healthy." Sandy's eyes reddened as she looked at Gu Mingming and said with a nasal voice, "Thank you, Gu Mingming." Gu Mingming opened her eyes and smiled. "What's there to thank me for? He's my godson after all." Sandy nodded her head heavily and said, "Gu Mingming, I still have one more thing to ask of you. There's no need for requests between us. Tell me if there's anything." Gu Mingming smiled. Sandy sniffed and said, "I want you to help me choose a name for my son. Is that okay?" Chapter 885. Sandy shook her head, her gaze filled with eagerness and desire. "You are the messenger of the beast deity. The names you give them are different." Gu Mingming chuckled, instantly understanding what Sandy meant. All parents in the world were like this, always wanting to give the best to their children. Gu Mingming nodded. "All right, I will help you give them names after you give birth." Sandy smiled and said, "I know you treat me the best." Whenever two females met, they would always have endless topics to talk about. They rambled on for a long time, leaving no room for the four males to interrupt. Gu Mingming had been in a bad mood for a while because of Qixuan and Oakley. Elvis and Leah were naturally happy to see someone who could talk to her and make her laugh. Hence, they did not forcefully intervene out of jealousy, allowing the two of them to laugh as they ate. They chatted softly and laughed loudly. As for Bode and Colin, haha, Sandy had already put on an act of exploding on the spot for the past few days. They could not do anything to her. She finally found someone who could make her laugh. As long as the two Buddhas in Gu Mingming's family did not fly into a rage, they could not wait for Sandy and Gu Mingming to spend more time together, so that Sandy's mood would improve. "And where is your Cole? Why don't I see him?" Everyone was taken aback by Sandy's words. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes in confusion. She tried her best not to show any abnormalities. She asked as she ate, "My Cole?" "Yeah." Sandy nodded. "You haven't forgiven him? Although he has not found the things you want, let him go home on Qixuan's account. Otherwise, it will not be good for the two of them to keep floating around outside." Gu Mingming raised her eyebrows. "He told you that?" Sandy nodded. "Yes, he and Leah mated with you at the same time. Although he is not as likable as Leah, he is still a 5th-level orc. You two also have Qixuan as your son. If you have not found the things, you can slowly search for them. You don't have to be so angry that you won't let them go home." "Cole and Leah mated with me?" Gu Mingming was getting more and more confused. She had mated with Leah in the Snake King Valley, but after returning to St. Nazaire, Guam Mingming did not block the news. So many people in the tribe knew what had happened to her in the Snake King Valley. Naturally, Sandy was one of those people. And after that, when they were digging the well, Gu Mingming had also specially told them what had happened in the Snake King Valley at the request of all her female friends. Sandy was the friend who had been by her side the longest. She didn't believe that Sandy didn't know what was going on between her and Cole. But Sandy obviously did not look like she was lying. Her attitude was so similar to when she was pleading for Elvis and Leah in the cave previously. Therefore, Sandy firmly believed that Cole was one of her partners, and that Qixuan was their son? F***ck. Qixuan was a wolf and Cole was a fox. They were of different breeds. How could they be biological father and son? You don't even need to do a DNA test. You can tell with your naked eyes, okay? Sandy, we should go back. If you continue to pester Gu Mingming, Leah will throw a tantrum again." As Bode spoke, he carried Sandy up forcefully. He gave Colin a look, before carrying the stubborn Sandy and leaving first. Chapter 886. Gu Mingming didn't reply and just looked at Colin quietly. She knew that Colin would definitely tell her everything without holding anything back, because he knew that she valued Sandy as much as he did, and would not leave her alone. Not long after you guys set off to search for the kiss of the ocean, Cole came to St. Nazaire. He asked Qi to trick Hutta and his brothers out, then used them to threaten Sandy to leave with him. Colin clenched his fists tightly, feeling that everything was his fault. If he had protected the three little ones well enough, and did not give Cole a chance to take advantage of them, perhaps none of this would have happened. But Gu Mingming knew that with Cole's methods, it would not be difficult for him to crush Colin. Even if he managed to stop him this time, there would be a next time. Moreover, if there was a next time, his methods would not be as gentle as tricking. After all, Cole did not only have Qi by his side, but also those third-level and fourth-level stray beasts that had yet to show themselves. Moreover, Qi was Hutta's biological brother, who could stop brothers from meeting. Gu Mingming patted Colin's shoulder to comfort him. She did not say a word and just listened to Colin sigh quietly. When we chased after them, we saw Cole and Sandy walking back, chatting and laughing. Hutta and the rest were playing by the side and the atmosphere was quite good. At that time, Bode and I felt very strange. Sandy had always been on the same side as you and would never like anyone you hated. When you left, you looked like you were going to fight to the death with someone, but when you came back, you looked like you regretted not meeting earlier. When Sandy saw Bode and I, she immediately asked us to follow her to Solder. She wanted to wait for you here. We pulled Sandy away from Cole, but she said that he was Gu Mingming's partner after all, and that she had to make things up between the two of you. I was stupid and could not wrap my head around it, so I directly said that Cole was not your partner. Then, Sandy flew into a rage and said that even if I still cared about you in my heart, I had already mated with her. She told me not to do anything that would ruin your relationship with Cole. I was so wronged. Gu Mingming frowned deeply. She knew everything about Colin liking her. Back then, Allie had used this matter to provoke Sandy, but Sandy had retorted. If Sandy would believe that there was something going on between her and Colin. Gu Mingming did not believe him. Then Cole pulled me and smiled mischievously. He said that if I don't want to be abandoned by Sandy and become a stray beast, I should shut up and not spout nonsense in front of Sandy. But I'm not talking nonsense. He's not your partner in the first place. I didn't believe it, so I went to talk to Sandy twice, but for the entire winter, Sandy didn't even let me touch her. She didn't even talk to me. Her temper was especially bad after she got pregnant. If anyone dared to say that Cole, and you are not a couple, she would immediately put up a desperate stance. Gu Mingming knew how much Sandy liked Colin. Wasn't the bear mark on his chest the best proof? They were so deeply in love that they would end up in a cold war, and even dissolve their partnership just because of a sentence that she had nothing to do with Cole. Cole was really cunning. Gu Mingming clenched her fists so tightly that her fingertips turned white. What she was worried about had really happened, hadn't it? First it was Qi, then Oakley, and now Sandy. Chapter 887. All the people important to her had formed an important connection with Cole. If she killed Cole rashly, the first to suffer would be the people she cared about. Unless she was so heartless that she didn't care about anyone, otherwise she could not move Cole. If Qi alone was enough to make her hesitate, then now, she was already at a standstill. Gu Mingming, think of a way. Sandy really can't go on like this. Her consciousness was getting more and more chaotic by the day. The last time, she suddenly recalled that Cole was a fox and Qi was a wolf. How could they be biological father and son? Then she felt a splitting headache. She hugged her head and rolled on the ground. After that, whenever she thought of any illogical details and tried to discover that you and Cole had nothing to do with each other, she would have a headache. It's still all right during the winter. At most, we won't mention you and Cole in front of her. But the closer it is to the end of winter, the more she thinks of you and Cole. When we found out that she was pregnant, we didn't dare to agitate her. Whenever she thought of something illogical, we would have to think of ways to justify ourselves and say that you and Cole were a couple. I'm sorry, I started rumors about you behind your back. After saying that, Colin lowered his head and frowned deeply. Colin had always been a simple and honest rough man. He tried not to open his mouth when he could. For him to say so much to Gu Mingming today, it was obvious that he was really worried sick about Sandy. Gu Mingming also sighed and said with some guilt, I should be the one apologizing. I'm afraid that the reason why Cole would plot against Sandy is also because of me. I will think of a way to settle this matter, don't worry. Colin raised his head and wanted to say something, but in the end he gave up and only said, then thank you. Then he left. Originally, hearing that Sandy was pregnant was a happy news. Cole was really trying his best to make things difficult for her. Elvis hugged her waist and kissed her brow lightly. Don't worry, it's fine. Gu Mingming looked up at Elvis and asked, if I was pregnant today and Cole had used some unknown method to control me, how would I react? Can you still calmly say don't worry, it's fine? Elvis was stunned. Just thinking about that possibility made his heart clench. He shook his head and said, I can't do it. Gu Mingming lowered her head and leaned back into Elvis's arms, saying, yeah, I can't do it either. Sandy was the first friend I'd made after coming here. She was such a coward. She didn't even resist when she was bullied by Nina, but because Nina scolded me, she got into a fight with Nina. No matter what, she always put my feelings first and treated me better than her own partner. As long as I make a request, she seems to have never refused. She is my precious sister. I can't ignore her. I can't do it. Elvis tightened his grip on her waist and rubbed his chin against the side of her face. His voice was firm and deep, calm as he said, I'm not asking you to ignore her, I'm just asking you not to worry. Worrying won't solve anything, right? Gu Mingming tilted her head and nodded. She did not say a word and just let Elvis hug her. It was the same at any time. His embrace always made her feel at ease. Chapter 888. The three young ones were overly excited today and fell asleep not long after they returned to the stone castle. Elvis and Leah accompanied Gu Mingming back to the room on the second floor and closed the door before speaking with ease. Leah, Sandy's condition, is very similar to the fox seductive fragrance. Although Leah had been roasting meat during the night campfire party, his attention was always on Gu Mingming, so he naturally heard the conversation between Colin and her. Fox seductive fragrance? Gu Mingming was taken aback. She suddenly recalled how Cole used a medicinal worm to frame Leah, and was tricked by him. That day, Cole appeared and seemed to have said something about replacing Lee's position. Leah later told Gu Mingming that a male's fox seductive fragrance could only increase interest, but a female's could confuse one's mind. Leah nodded and said, I smelled it when Sandy sat beside you just now. Although it was very faint, it was definitely the fox seductive fragrance. Gu Mingming frowned and asked, is there a cure? Leah nodded, but his expression was slightly hesitant as he said, there are two ways. The first is to find the person who bewitched Sandy and let the original owner undo it. The second is to find someone who is better at using the fox seductive fragrance. With a stronger fox seductive fragrance and a more skilled technique, the original illusions will be suppressed. Bewitching? Gu Mingming was confused. Leah nodded and said, a female's fox seductive fragrance will cause people to hallucinate differently. But if used alone, it is just a purer sex secretion than a male's. But if paired with someone who knows how to bewitch, it can confuse one's mind. Gu Mingming frowned and looked at Leah, asking, do you know bewitching? Leah nodded and said, every tribe leader and witch doctor has to learn bewitching. Gu Mingming said, then use it on me once and let me experience it. Leah pursed his lips and said, I won't use it on you, Humph. Gu Mingming was taken aback and thought to herself, what the hell was with this sudden Sundara? What are you Humph for? Looking at Gu Mingming's confused face, Elvis chuckled and played with her fingers. He's afraid that once he uses the bewitching spell on you, he will not be able to control his greed and want more and more. First they'll fight for favor, then they might want to replace me, and finally, they'll want to kill me. I won't do anything to upset Mingming. Leah turned his head away, his face blushing. Gu Mingming chuckled. Then isn't it settled? I'll only do it once. I just want to know what a bewitching spell is. Leah turned his head and refused to look at Gu Mingming, rejecting her coldly. No. Gu Mingming face-bombed. Then there's no other way. I can only look for Cole. No. Leah exploded and glared daggers at Gu Mingming. Let him cast a bewitching spell on you and you will think that he is your partner just like Sandy. Gu Mingming was suddenly speechless. Why did her fox's IQ seem to drop when it came to matters related to her? I mean, look for Cole, and ask him to remove the bewitching spell on Sandy. I didn't say to ask him to cast a bewitching spell on me. Leah was taken aback. Clearing his throat, he turned his face to the side. That won't do either. I don't like you looking for Cole. He smells like a fox and it's so smelly. Aside from the topic, recommending a good friend 9 Palace Lotus. School Hunk's favorite. Kiss Peace Little Sweetheart, a wave of strong school sweetheart novels. It's free if it's not sweet. This was the story of an intelligent and calm girl who silently defeated a group of rivals in love who surrounded her deskmate. In the end, she won the heart of a male god. But she just patted her butt and left in a carefree manner. In the end, she was carried to the bed and ruined. Below was a conversation between the handsome school hunk and his deskmate who was pretending to be dumb. Little cutie, I'll be waiting for you at the field after class. Why? Why are you going to the field? There's grass in the field, just you. F*CKU? 1v1 on both sides. Losing everything. Exciting school life. The plot basically relied on each other, and the word count basically depended on coincidence. Chapter 889. Gu Mingming really wanted to remind Leah that both of them were from the same tribe, and were born from the same mother, so the taste was really not that different. But Gu Mingming knew that Leah would definitely explode if she said that. Moreover, she was not willing to compare Leah with Cole, so she just criticized silently and did not say it out loud. Elvis patted Lee's shoulder and said, "It's all right. You just need to show Xiaoming the process of casting the spell. Without the female's fox seductive fragrance, it won't have any effect." But Leah hesitated. Elvis chuckled and said, "Why? After rebuking the head of the household, you want to rebuke the first partner now? Are you trying to ascend to heaven?" Leah suddenly laughed and said helplessly, "You really pamper Gu Mingming. You dare to joke around with your position as the first partner. Aren't you afraid that I will cast a bewitching spell and make Gu Mingming give up the position of the first partner to me?" Elvis was unperturbed and raised his brows calmly and said, "You can try." Leah twitched his lips in boredom and said, "Tisk, forget it. The first partner has to maintain his bearing. This won't do, that won't do. Ha, I will just be a pampered partner." Elvis nodded and said, "Yeah, if you want to continue being pampered, don't go against the head of the household." Leah rolled his eyes at Elvis and said, I know. TSK, you are so daring." Elvis chuckled. Daring? Also not. He never dared to risk Gu Mingming. But if it was Leah, he was not worried. Leah was the same as him. He would not do anything to make Gu Mingming sad, right? Leah swayed his tail and sat in front of Gu Mingming. He closed his long and narrow eyes slowly before opening them again, meeting Gu Mingming's gaze with unmistakable accuracy. A red light flashed across his eyes and Gu Mingming felt her line of sight being held tightly by Leah, and she could not move it away at all. That pair of eyes was like a huge whirlpool, and the more she struggled, the deeper she sank until she could not see the top. Gu Mingming, you are very Russian now. You really want to eat stewed meat. You are very Russian now. You really want to eat stewed meat. Her vision was blurry and Gu Mingming could not see anything. She could only hear the familiar voice repeating in her ears. Gu Mingming's stomach twitched, and when she regained her senses, she felt a little hungry. "Leah, I'm hungry, I want to eat stewed meat." Gu Mingming blurted out subconsciously and saw Leah and Elvis's serious expression. Stunned for a moment, Gu Mingming suddenly smiled and said, "I understand." Elvis hugged Gu Mingming and asked softly. Gu Mingming said, "Without the help of the fox seductive fragrance, although I will be bewitched, I will wake up in an instant. Bewitching spell?" Gu Mingming looked up at Leah, her gaze carrying the hazy coolness of the moonlight. She looked like a little fox hiding under the night sky, so cunning that it was exceptionally captivating. "If I'm not wrong, this bewitching spell was imparted to you by the previous messenger of the beast deity, right? If it's her, she should be able to bewitch people even without the fox seductive fragrance." Chapter 890. Gu Mingming laughed and said, "Of course not. How is this bewitching spell? It's just hypnosis." "Hypnosis?" Leah asked. Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Yeah, it's a type of psychological suggestion. It's Wang Xiaoxin's specialty." Gu Mingming leaned back and rested her head on Elvis's chest, her fingers tapping on Elvis's arm in a rhythmic pattern. First, using the fox seductive fragrance to disturb a person's mind, then using psychological suggestions when the person's mind is weak to achieve the effect of hypnosis. But normally, hypnosis would have a necessary key. Once this key is triggered, the hypnosis can be removed. Sometimes it's a certain keyword, sometimes it's a certain thing or a certain time. Simply put, everything in the world can be that key. So, unless the person using the key to remove the hypnosis, the probability of trying to guess is too low, almost negligible. What are the chances of getting this key from Cole? Probably lower than Gu Mingming trying to guess herself. His original intention was to hold the people around Gu Mingming in his hands as a life-saving bargaining chip, so he naturally would not return them to her easily. Then there was only the second option left. A stronger person using the spell? Then did she have to dig Wang Xiaoxin out from the ground? The more Gu Mingming thought about it, the more frustrated she got. For the umpteenth time, why did she choose to major in human resource management in university? She should have majored in psychology. Rubbing her hair, Gu Mingming slapped her thigh and said, "I want to sleep." Elvis and Leah exchanged glances and said, "Go find the beast deity?" Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Yeah." Elvis sighed and kissed Gu Mingming's little mouth, saying, "Don't sleep for too long." Gu Mingming nodded as a form of agreement. Elvis gently placed Gu Mingming on the bed that was covered with a thick layer of beast skin, then turned to sleep on the outside to block the side of the bed for her. He used the beast skin to gently cover her tiny body and said while tucking in the corner of the blanket, "Sleep, I will guard you." Gu Mingming slowly closed her eyes and allowed the drowsiness to engulf her. Her consciousness rose and returned to the clouds of white fog. The beast deity was sitting leisurely on a two-seater wooden chair on a small patch of grass about 2 square meters, smiling at Gu Mingming. He stretched out his hand and said, "Daughter, you're back." Gu Mingming walked over quickly, tilting her head to look at the beast deity with an indignant expression. "I was tortured so badly in the beast world, but you are living so happily here." The beast deity smacked his lips. "Didn't you come back for pocket money? This is not obedient. Is it all right?" Gu Mingming choked. She clenched her fists and said, "You win." After she finished speaking, she took a deep breath and said with a kind smile, "Papa, I'm back to watch TV with you." The beast deity raised his eyebrows and laughed. "You seem like a scheming female antagonist who fights for inheritance in television dramas." A thick mark appeared on Gu Mingming's forehead and she faked a smile. "I am your only child. No one will fight with me for your inheritance." The beast deity nodded in agreement and said, "Yeah, what you said makes sense." Gu Mingming raised her palm and said, "I intend to be a hard-working daughter this time. I don't want anything else this time. Just give me a book." Chapter 891. The smile on Gu Mingming's face almost broke. She shook her head and sat beside the beast deity. Wrapping her arms around the beast deity's arm, she said, "Papa, I want a copy of Hypnosis, from beginner to master." The beast deity nodded. With a fatherly doting tone he said, "Sure, watch television with me first. I will give it to you after." "Sure." Gu Mingming agreed happily. Then, she crossed her arms and looked at the beast deity. With a wave of his hand, an empty space appeared in front of them. Familiar scenes flashed before her eyes. It was the same place she had seen the previous time. The luxurious shopping mall was filled with dazzling items. All the products exuded a luxurious and dispirited aura. Gu Mingming did not even need to look at the labels to be blinded by the dazzling light. Snake pressed Gu Mingming onto the sofa. Then, he gestured casually. A young lady at the counter pushed 2 rows of clothes in front of him. Snake casually took a set of clothes and entered the changing room to change. After changing, he walked to Gu Mingming and asked, "Does it look good?" Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Why was this hero not acting according to the rules? Didn't he say he was going to buy clothes for her? Why did he activate the miracle nuanuance dressing mode? But it was really pleasing to the eyes. The four-piece khaki suit on Snake looked like it was tailor-made for a model. He looked like a business elite, instantly killing off all the fake CEOs in television dramas. Maybe it was because the nobility he exuded was different from the aura he exuded just by relying on clothes and props. Snake had only asked 3 words. He did not even try to act cool. He just stood there quietly. It was as if he was the cover of a magazine. Gu Mingming had the urge to take a photo and lick the screen. Snake raised his left hand and looked at the watch on his wrist. He chuckled and said, "Yeah, you stared at me for 2 minutes. Looks like this set of clothes is not bad." Gu Mingming was brought back to reality by Elvis's words. She suddenly lowered her head and said, Who looked at you?" Elvis was in a good mood. He took 2 steps forward and hooked Gu Mingming's chin. His gaze was teasing. "Wipe your saliva before denying it. Maybe it will be more convincing." Gu Mingming instinctively touched her mouth and realized that she had been tricked when she realized that the smile in Snake's eyes had deepened. She snorted angrily and turned her head away from Snake. Snake did not mind. He just changed into different styles of clothes for Gu Mingming to see, before deciding which one she wanted based on how stunned she was. But she had to admit that Snake was a natural clothes rack. None of the clothes he tried on were bad looking, as if they were specially designed for him. And no matter what style it was, when it came to him, he was handsome. His handsomeness could explode the sky. So basically, as long as they tried it on, they would buy it. Until Snake wore a pure white suit. Because of Gu Mingming's memories, he knew that she was a fan of those Korean dramas where people wore suits and suits. From how she stared blankly at him changing his clothes today, that was indeed the case. As a result, most of the clothes that Snake tried on were suits, and most of them successfully attracted her attention. There were even a few sets that this girl was infatuated with. But when this pure white suit appeared, Gu Mingming was stunned for a few seconds. Then she suddenly burst into laughter. She laughed so hard that she could not even stand straight. Aside from the topic, today's update ended. Chapter 892. Snake's hair stood on end from Gu Mingming's laughter. He turned back to look at himself in the mirror helplessly, but did not see anything strange. He frowned, feeling somewhat disappointed. Gu Mingming laughed for a long time without any intention of stopping, so Snake could only walk to her and pinch her little face. He pulled her into his shadow and asked, "What are you laughing at?" Snake's pressure was too strong, and Gu Mingming was instantly terrified. She did not dare to laugh anymore. Holding back her laughter, she lowered her head and shook her head slightly, saying, No, Senior is very handsome. You look handsome no matter what you wear." Snake gritted his teeth and said, "Have you seen the work manual? What will happen if you lie to me?" The Evil Treaty of 794. Gu Mingming looked up at Snake, thinking that she could not afford to pay the compensation fee of $450,000. So she chose to be honest. "Actually, I'm not laughing at anything. I just feel that wearing a full white suit makes me look like a famous and iconic character." Snake quickly tried to recall which celebrity's iconic white suit was worn, but no matter how he thought about it, he could not think of anything, so he could only raise his brows and ask, "Who?" "KFC," Gu Mingming said as she laughed. She could not hold it in any longer, clutching her stomach and rolling on the sofa in laughter. "Gu Mingming." Snake enunciated her name word by word. Gu Mingming also knew that it was not nice to laugh at her boss like that, but she really could not control herself. For the sake of her own job, Gu Mingming laughed while trying to salvage the situation. "Senior, listen to me. Even if it's KFC, it must be the KFC that was at its peak when it was young. Haha. Yes, the most handsome KFC is definitely you, haha." If it was anyone else who dared to be so presumptuous in front of Snake, they would probably be crushed to the point where not even their bones would be left. But for some reason, facing Gu Mingming, who was laughing like an idiot, Snake could not find any trace of anger in his heart. Instead, the corners of his lips curled up along with her laughter, and his heart was filled with joy. Releasing Gu Mingming's chin, Snake returned to the fitting room to change out of the white suit and wore his initial set of clothes. When he came out, he said to the salesgirl, "The clothes I picked just now, each one is matched with 10 sets of women's clothing. They are her size." With that, he pulled Gu Mingming away without waiting for the counter lady's reply. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Snake had tried on at least a dozen sets of clothes just now. If each set was paired with 10 sets of female clothing, that would be more than 100 sets of new clothes. Damn, he's so rich that he's inhumane. The clothes sold here were so expensive. Gu Mingming's liver would tremble for a few days just to buy one set, let alone 100 sets. Even if she was sold, she wouldn't be worth the price of the clothes. "I don't want new clothes. You can buy them for yourself. Don't buy them for me. I don't want them." Snake paused and turned to look at Gu Mingming. "I bought all my clothes that you like. I spent so much effort to please you. Shouldn't you repay me a little?" Gu Mingming felt that when she was talking to Snake, her intelligence was always not online. She could not understand what he was saying at all. He roared inwardly, "Speak human language, hey!" Chapter 893. Snake's tone was light, like a feather caressing the tip of her heart. His warm breath sprayed into Gu Mingming's nose, making it extremely ambiguous. "In the future, you are only allowed to wear the clothes I buy and use the things I buy. From head to toe, you are only allowed to stick my label." Gu Mingming blinked and asked awkwardly, "Are you trying to keep me as your mistress?" Snake's smile deepened as he savored the word keep. He thought for a while and said, "That's not impossible." Gu Mingming lifted her leg and kicked Snake's calf. She lowered her body and crawled out from under Snake's armpit. After running for 7 to 8 steps, she turned around to look at Snake and said, "Let me tell you, I buy my strength and not my body. If you want to play with the unspoken rules of the workplace, you can find someone else. I am not going to be crazy with you." Snake was not annoyed and instead smiled. He turned around and leaned against the car door, crossing his arms and looking at Gu Mingming. Tsk, even his Tuming's angry look was so pleasing to the eye. She was a good girl with principles. "Tuming, come here." Snake waved his hand, and then put his palm up, waiting for Gu Mingming to put her hand in. Gu Mingming took another step back, and looked like she would rather die than submit to Snake. Snake was not in a hurry and just smiled. "You are now my personal assistant, and need to accompany me to all kinds of occasions. In other words, you are my face. If you dress shabbily, you will be embarrassing me. So, these clothes can only be considered as work clothes and were given to you by the company." Gu Mingming thought about it. She felt that there was nothing wrong with Snake's words. Blushing, she felt that she might have overreacted just now. Clearing her throat, she said, That label whatever." Snake still maintained his inviting posture with his palm up and continued to answer. "My personal assistant from head to toe, every detail must be perfected. Your own taste." Gu Mingming looked at Snake's indescribable expression and then looked down at her own clothes. She blushed. A Taobao t-shirt with 29 free shipping, a pair of jeans with 69 free shipping, a pair of shoes with the same style that he bought last year on Double 11, and a large school bag that he bought at the night market. This outfit really doesn't match the identity of a big CEO. Snake was not in the mood to mock Gu Mingming. The pain she had suffered over the past decade would only make his heart ache. Seeing that she was not coming over, Snake strode forward and grabbed her little hand, bringing her into his arms. His large hand gently caressed the back of her neck and his lips pressed against her ear, whispering, "The next time I call for you, you have to come over to my side. Do you understand?" Snake's embrace was so warm that Gu Mingming forgot to struggle free. For some strange reason, he responded with an "in," but he had no idea what his current situation was. The corners of Snake's lips curled up, his eyes filled with gentleness. His voice was so gentle that it numbed all of Gu Mingming's bones, but he did not realize how much affection and infatuation he had revealed. "You can't go back on what you've promised me. I've waited long enough. One more second. I don't want to wait any longer. So, the next time I call for you, if you don't come to me, I will come to you." Gu Mingming's heart felt as if it was being tugged by someone. That violent trembling made her feel a little dazed. It was as if something was surging through his heart, but it was too intense, and he couldn't hold on to it. Chapter 894. The next morning, Gu Mingming refused to take Snake's car to school no matter what. Snake did not force her and only sent her to the bus stop. Then he watched her board the bus and drove his sports car slowly behind the bus. The bus stopped at one stop after another, and he also stopped at one stop after another, until Gu Mingming alighted from the bus and turned around to see a flamboyant person sitting in the flashy sports car, waving at her and smiling happily. Gu Mingming turned and walked away, pretending that she did not know that flamboyant person driving the sports car. The moment she entered school, Gu Mingming felt strange. Everyone seemed to be pointing fingers at her and gossiping about something. By right, other than a few girls in the same dormitory, not many of her classmates would be able to call out her name. How did she suddenly become the center of attention? Gu Mingming looked left and right, looking confused. She thought to herself, perhaps it was because Snake ran into the classroom and hugged her for the entire lesson yesterday? She did not take it to heart, and just quickened her footsteps to the classroom. She sat in a corner and leaned on the table, burying her face in her arms. She could not sleep well last night because she had been thinking about all sorts of things. Now she was so sleepy that she fell asleep unknowingly. She did not even know when Snake had sat beside her again. This lesson was Professor Zhang's. This professor was an old pedant and old-fashioned. He always talked about respecting teachers and principals and paid great attention to class discipline. In his class, all university students were scolded like kindergartners. They had to sit properly or else he would feel that they did not respect him. Then the graduation grade would be, haha. Gu Mingming should have sat in the corner and buried her head in sleep. But this girl was so sleepy yesterday that not only was she sleeping, she was also snoring. Although her snoring was soft and looked especially cute to Snake, to Professor Zhang, it was an affront. A piece of chalk was thrown towards Gu Mingming and was caught by Snake in midair. You! Professor Zhang's eyes widened in anger. Snake stood up slowly and said, she studied very late last night and needs to catch up on her sleep now. This was the first time Professor Zhang had been contradicted, and he was furious. But Snake did not give him a chance to speak and continued, I will make up for the content of this lesson for her alone. It will not affect the professor's performance. Professor Zhang was so angry that the hand he pointed at Snake with was trembling. Snake chuckled and said, I suggest the professor to continue with your class. Don't waste everyone's time and don't disturb her sleep. Professor Zhang slammed the blackboard eraser on the podium and said angrily, I won't let her pass the final evaluation. Snake slowly sat down and chuckled. I hope your term of office can last till the end of the semester. Gu Mingming raised her head in a daze and asked with sleepy eyes, Huh? What happened? Snake rubbed her little head and draped his jacket over her head. It's all right, continue sleeping. Professor Zhang was infuriated and felt that he had no way out of this embarrassing situation. Hence, he flicked his sleeves and left, leaving the rest of the class to look at each other in dismay. They watched as Snake watched Gu Mingming sleep for an entire lesson. Chapter 895. I was afraid that someone would be beside you while you were sleeping, so I came over to guard my position. Snakel smiled at Gu Mingming, his voice gentle and calm, with a tinge of sweetness. Goosebumps rose all over Gu Mingming's body. She shrugged her shoulders and said, Get up, I need to go to the toilet. Snakel stood up and made way for Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming turned sideways and Snakel followed behind her. Seeing how awkward she was because of him, the corners of his lips curled up and his eyes were filled with love. Gu Mingming entered the toilet and randomly found a cubicle to close the door. She had just squatted down when she heard the discussion outside the door. Did you hear? That kept woman. Do I even need to hear? Her photo has already been posted on the school forum. TSK, she usually doesn't show off much, but she's actually a powerful vixen. Isn't that so? Confessing to the basketball captain in the morning, getting intimate with the coolest school hunk in class, and still meeting her sugar daddy after school. TSK, she's pretty good. Isn't that so? The basketball captain's stamina is famous for not collapsing overnight. The coolest school hunk used to be in the swimming team. His body is also amazing. I wonder who her sugar daddy is, dating 3 men in a day. She's really like a wolf and a tiger. Gu Mingming was confused at first, but the more she heard, the more she felt like they were talking about her. But she knew about the confession to the basketball captain. She also knew about the relationship with the coolest school hunk. What the hell was a kept woman? Taking out her phone, Gu Mingming hurriedly logged into the school forum. Title: First-year student has a powerful background, luxury car, villa, and exhibition. There are photos to prove the truth. Gu Mingming clicked on it, and felt like she was struck by lightning. There was a photo of her standing at the entrance of Snakel's villa. At that time, Snakel was at the entrance, but he couldn't be seen due to the angle. He could only see her standing in a daze at the open door of the villa, about to walk in. There was also a photo of her alighting at the entrance of the exhibition, as well as various branded paper bags neatly stacked on the ground, then tied together with a red silk cloth, with a label on it that said to Gu Mingming. The accompanying text was all sorts of incitement and speculation, with the general direction being that she was kept by a rich businessman. There were countless scandals such as selling yourself in junior high school, having 5 abortions in 3 years of high school, and so on. Gu Mingming held onto her phone, so angry that her fingers were trembling. Her entire body was ice cold, but she could not say a single word. Her tears fell uncontrollably, but she could not cry out. For so many years, no matter how hard life had been, she had at least persisted in exchanging money through labor and being a good girl. You can be poor, but you can never be cheap. Self-respect and self-respect were the few things she had left. How could these ignorant people trample on her like this? The bell for class had already rung, and the people in the restroom had already left. Snake, who was waiting at the door, frowned. Not seeing Gu Mingming coming out, he walked in. Tu Ming. Snake called softly. Gu Mingming did not say a word and just stood up hurriedly to pull up her pants. Tu Ming. Snake raised his voice. Gu Mingming wiped away her tears, not wanting Snake to see her crying. Chapter 896. This tiny sound successfully attracted Snake's attention. Without another word, he lifted his leg and kicked the bathroom door open. Looking at Gu Mingming, who was curled up in a corner crying her eyes out, Snake frowned in heartache. He hugged Gu Mingming in his arms and caressed her back, ignoring her struggles. Don't cry, you're so ugly. Don't bother about me, sob sob sob. Let go of me. If someone sees this, I won't be able to explain myself. Let go, let go. The more Gu Mingming struggled, the tighter Snake hugged her, until she could no longer exert any strength and lay obediently on his shoulders, twitching and shaking. Snake then said, "Tell me, why are you crying?" Gu Mingming looked at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming refused to speak, and just kept crying. Snake didn't want to force her, and just carried her to the underground car park. He stuffed her into the car and brought her back to the villa. By the time they reached the villa, Gu Mingming's emotions had more or less calmed down. Her nasal voice was still very strong, but she no longer cried. "Why did you come back? We only had one lesson." Snake glanced sideways at her and said, "I am the boss. I will arrange whatever I say. You just have to obey and don't have to question." Without explaining further, Snake pushed Gu Mingming into her room and said, "Shower and change your clothes. I don't like to see you in such a disheveled and pathetic state." With that, he slammed the door shut and returned to his own room. Just one lesson? Ha, so what? How could he let others see her crying? Her tears could only fall in front of him. Picking up his phone, Snake dialed a number and said, 3 minutes. Find out what happened to her today. With that, Snake hung up without waiting for the other party's reply. Sitting on the big office chair, Snake crossed his hands on the office table. His gaze was cold and sinister, and he exuded a violent aura. It was as if the surrounding air was filled with black particles, making one feel suffocated and terrified. A minute and a half later, Snake's phone screen lit up. Other than the post on the school forum, there was also the list of people discussed in the female washroom, and the content of the discussion. Of course, the attached page clearly listed who posted the post on the school forum, and where the photo came from. Snake's finger lightly brushed past the name on the last page. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, as if the death god was announcing the arrival of darkness. Gu Mingming changed into a clean set of clothes after washing up. Snake had thrown away her previous clothes, so if Gu Mingming didn't want to run around naked, she could only wear the clothes Snake had bought for her yesterday. The good thing was that they were all arranged in sets, so there was no need to worry that Gu Mingming would randomly dress Chanel into a killer. When she came out of the room, Snake was already standing at the door. Looking at the pink dress Gu Mingming was wearing, his lips curled up slightly. Yet it matched his clothes perfectly. The simple ponytail was full of youthfulness and wildness. It was far less exquisite than some girls who would play tricks on their hairstyles, but it made people feel natural and comfortable. Snake was satisfied with Gu Mingming's outfit. He held her hand and returned to the sports car, heading straight for school. Chapter 897. Snake parked the car and brought Gu Mingming into the performing arts class. There were already 2 rows of bodyguards dressed in black standing guard at the entrance of the classroom. The principal and a group of administrators were already waiting at the entrance. Upon seeing Snake, the principal bowed respectfully and did not say a word. The group of administrators followed behind Snake in an orderly manner according to their positions, and entered the large classroom in a single file. The performing arts class was a rather ostentatious one. The students in this class were all handsome and pretty, and all of them were children of a certain family background. They might not necessarily walk the path of an artist in the future, but were sent here to cultivate their aura. The lectern on the podium had already been removed and replaced by a large chair. Snake turned around and sat down. Gu Mingming did not understand and just stood quietly behind Snake with a dumbfounded expression. Snake's gaze swept across the faces of everyone in the classroom, then curled his lips coldly. His voice was so cold that there was not a single trace of emotion. Every word he said was like a sharp blade made of ice, wreaking havoc on everyone's hearts. My Tuming said that everyone has a fixed label on them. The one that stuck on me previously seemed to be the mute school hunk. No one dared to reply. It was so quiet that even the flow of air seemed to be noises, and breathing was unnecessary. I'm not very satisfied with this label, so I want to change it. Snake leaned against the back of the chair lazily. With a pull of his large hand, Gu Mingming fell into his arms. She wanted to struggle, but Snake did not give her the chance. He wrapped one arm around her waist and allowed her to struggle, but she could not leave his embrace at all. Snake leisurely admired Gu Mingming's every move until she completely gave up struggling and obediently nestled in his arms. He then continued in satisfaction. I feel that the label of holding a grudge and covering up for my shortcomings is not bad and suits me very well. In order to let everyone have a deep impression of this new label, I have decided that from today onwards, I will kill anyone who dares to touch my Tumeng. There was a series of gasps and the temperature in the classroom dropped by a few degrees. The thread regarding Gu Mingming was a hot topic in the school forum. Although it was suddenly deleted 20 minutes ago, there were thousands of people discussing it. In this classroom, everyone felt insecure. Snake's gaze scanned through them one by one and finally landed on the face of the school belle, Missouri Bebe. Let's start with you. Mo Bebe shuddered and bit her lower lip as she glared at Snake. She wanted to tell herself not to be afraid. Although Snake was handsome, he was just a university student, and there was nothing to be afraid of. Wasn't it just standing up for his girlfriend? There were many people who were willing to stand up for her. It's okay, it's okay. But the headmaster and the others were standing on the podium, but he was sitting. The rows of black-clothed men at the door also told Mo Bebe that she was too naive, and the source of all this fear came from the person sitting on the podium. He was like the uncrowned king of hell, unrestrained, killing at will, crushing everything, and looking down on everything. Snakel glanced sideways, and with a glance, the man in black at the door walked to the front of the podium with an iPad and connected it to the classroom's projection equipment using Bluetooth. Then the big screen showed erotic pictures one after another. The main character of the pictures was none other than the school belle, Missouri Bebe. Chapter 898. Everyone could hear the deeper meaning behind Snake's emphasis on the word miss. When he looked at Mo Bebe again, his gaze was filled with obscenity and disdain. Impossible, this photo is a composite. It must be. Mo Bebe was making her final struggle. Her live stream was always burned after viewing it, so there was no way there would be any evidence. This was at most a screenshot of those otakus, as long as she denied it. But Snake smiled and said, I don't want my Tuming to see such filthy things, it hurts her eyes. So I will send the original video up later. As Snake said that, the man in black specially opened a folder. There was a short MP4 video in it, lasting 49 minutes and 26 seconds. The cover was a close-up of Mo Bebe's underwear. Meng Meng's face paled and she bit her lower lip, unable to say a word. But Snake did not let her off and continued. I heard that you can get Miss Mo's contact details by sending 10 yachts. 50 yachts to invite Miss Mo out for a one-to-one live broadcast? Yeah, I contacted a few Miss Mo's very close friends and they gave me some especially exciting treasured videos. I feel that they are really too good, so I have already sent them to Miss Mo's parents and the leader of your parents' unit as a gift. Mo Bebe looked at Snake, her gaze starting to slacken. She trembled all over but could not say a single word. Oh right. Miss Mo has taken such good care of my Tumeng. So in return, I have already invited a few especially close friends of yours to the scene. They will cooperate with Miss Mo to showcase your acting talent to everyone. In order to realize Miss Mo's dream of becoming a star, and let you shoot to fame. This performance will be broadcasted live on the livestream platform. Every student in the school will have a VIP account, and it has already been sent to everyone's phones in the form of text messages. With that, Snake carried Gu Mengmeng and stood up. He was as elegant as a prince in a European castle. He smiled and said, Then I shall not disturb everyone from enjoying the exciting show. Before he finished his sentence, Snake had already carried Gu Mengmeng out of the classroom. A group of school leaders followed Snakel out, and the girls in the classroom also jogged out. However, a few brave boys stayed in the classroom, and had already started to lay their hands on the former goddess. After everyone had left the classroom, 5 wretched and greasy middle-aged men wearing masks walked in. Gu Mengmeng could not hear any of the cries for help and groans coming from the classroom due to the distance. She only thought that Snake was just scaring her. Snake carried Gu Mengmeng into the principal's office. The school leaders stood in a row in front of Snake. Snake stretched out his hand and took a name list from the hands of the man in black. He passed it to the principal and said, The school's atmosphere should be rectified. What do you think? Principal? The principal respectfully took the name list, lowered his head, and said, You are right, I will definitely deal with the disciplinary issue seriously. Snake nodded and did not want to say anything more. He was not in a good mood because Gu Mengmeng did not want him to hug her. Holding her little hand, he stood up and walked out. When he reached the door, he suddenly stopped and turned to look at the principal, saying, Professor Zhang. Professor Zhang will reach the retirement age next week. The school has already given up on the counter-employment plan. He will leave this Friday. The principal answered directly. Chapter 899. The scene froze at the back view of Snakel leading Gu Mengmeng away. The white fog filled the air again, sealing the empty space. Gu Mengmeng stretched lazily and stood up with her palm facing upwards. Daddy pocket money. The beast deity chuckled, as if he was looking at his own willful daughter. He slapped Gu Mengmeng's palm. I feel that Hypnosis, From Beginner to Expert, is not a good book. Daddy, can you recommend a more practical one? Gu Mingming raised her brow. She looked at the beast deity with a sneaky smile and replied, "Oh." The beast deity lifted his finger. There was a small white dot on his index finger. It was not tangible and looked as if his finger was glowing. It was not glaring. The glow was gentle and light, a little like pearls under the sun, with a hazy glow. The beast deity tapped Gu Mingming's brow lightly. Gu Mingming's eyes instantly lost focus, and she fell into a state of nightmare. It was as if something was rapidly squeezing into her brain. It was so fast that Gu Mingming could not react in time. She only felt many things filling up her thoughts. It was as if she suddenly knew something she did not know in the past. It was about a minute, but to Gu Mingming, it was a long time that could be counted in microseconds. When the beast deity removed his finger from Gu Mingming's brow, Gu Mingming's eyes slowly regained their focus. Blinking, Gu Mingming looked at the beast deity in a daze. The beast deity chuckled. "How is it, my dear daughter's cheating cheat? Are you satisfied?" Gu Mingming supported her head with one hand and slowly extended a finger with the other. She waved it twice in front of the beast deity, then suddenly laughed. "Whose memories did you implant into my brain?" Gu Mingming's expression changed. The beast deity placed his index finger on his lips and gestured for her to keep quiet. More accurately, it is not anyone's memory. It is just a portion of someone's knowledge and her own research insights. Damn it, why did this portion of knowledge and research insights seem to be related to bewitching spells? Was there a need to ask? Wasn't the answer obvious? Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around the beast deity's neck and kissed him on the cheek. "You are abusing your power for personal gain. But Dad, I really like you more and more." Sure enough, people with a biological father are different. The beast deity rubbed Gu Mingming's little head gently. "I forcefully dragged you into the beast world and destroyed your original life. I made you suffer so much and suffer so much. Father will also feel guilty." Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "Actually, it's nothing much. Although there have been many troubling matters recently, at least I have family here. It was better than being all alone in the original world, forsaken and helpless. But I think it's better for you to hold on to this guilty heart. This is more beneficial to me." The beast deity smiled benevolently and nodded. Alright. Gu Mingming released the beast deity's neck, and was just about to leave when she paused. She turned to look at the beast deity and asked, "Oh, that's right, Father. Can't we really send Wabi to Snake's side?" The beast deity was taken aback, as if he did not expect Gu Mingming to mention this. Chapter 900. The beast deity just nodded and did not say a word. Gu Mingming closed her eyes and fell backwards with her back straight. A wave of dizziness accompanied by the weightlessness of free fall made Gu Mingming frown. She gathered her limbs together and sat up abruptly. She got up too suddenly, and her head was a little dizzy. Her body tilted and she was leaning into a warm embrace. "You're awake?" Before she finished her sentence, a cup of water was already placed in front of Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming lowered her head to drink a mouthful, and then looked up to meet Elvis's deep and gentle eyes. Chuckling, Gu Mingming kissed Elvis's chin and said, "It's so good to see you the moment I open my eyes." Elvis felt a surge of warmth in his heart because of Gu Mingming's words, moistening the gentleness and pampering in his blue eyes. He kissed her brows and said, "I am always here. You will definitely be able to see me whenever you want to." Gu Mingming smiled and nodded in agreement. Then, she leaned into his arms and said, "How long did I sleep for this time?" "For days." Elvis asked worriedly, "Are you hungry?" "A little." Gu Mingming nodded and answered. Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's limbs to help her wake up, so that her body would not be able to react after sleeping for too long, and it would be uncomfortable to get off the bed directly. "Leah saw that you have the intention to wake up, and has already gone to prepare food. Wake up a little, and we will go downstairs." Gu Mingming nodded and asked again, "Did anything happen during the 4 days I was asleep?" Elvis shook his head lightly and said, "Nothing much. It's just that Leah was bored, and snatched the authority from Oakley's hands." Gu Mingming almost choked on her own saliva. He had already initiated a coup, and he still called it nothing much? Elvis poked Gu Mingming's brows lovingly and said, "Why are you so nervous? With Li's methods, are you still afraid that he killed Oakley and snatched the authority?" Gu Mingming felt that he was right. Leah rarely solved his problems by killing. He had many ways to make people automatically do things according to his wishes. But Cole would allow Leah to suppress the authority so easily? Gu Mingming expressed her doubts. Elvis paused and smiled helplessly. He looked up at Gu Mingming and said, "He has already achieved his goal, hasn't he?" Huh. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis in confusion. Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's calf as he said, "If he wanted Sauter's political power, he could just launch an attack to seize it. Why would he need to control Oakley to achieve his goal? Isn't it too roundabout?" "You mean?" Gu Mingming still did not quite understand. Elvis used the beast's skin to cover one of Gu Mingming's calves properly, before rubbing the other one. He said, "They are enemies, but they don't want to start a war. The best way is to display your abilities and bargaining chips to let the other party weigh the pros and cons. Isn't that right?" Gu Mingming chuckled. "So Cole is telling me that no matter how much I dislike him, as long as I can't bear to part with Qixian, Sandy and Oakley, I can't do anything to him, right?" Although Elvis was unwilling, he still nodded and said, "He has the people you care about in his hands, so we can only be led by the nose by him. It's a little passive." So Leah took back control of Sauter. To snatch Oakley back? Elvis lightly scratched Gu Mingming's little nose and said, "Xiaoming is so smart." Aside from the topic, yes, Snake is very domineering, isn't he? Does everyone like him? Snake is no longer a snake now. Oh, he's a normal human now. Like it if you like it, give me the ticket. Chapter 901. Leah was going to handle Oakley's matters, so Gu Mingming did not want to bother too much about it. His situation was different from Sandy's. Sandy's consciousness was controlled by Cole through hypnosis, and it was not voluntary. But Oakley, he did not look like he was being controlled. Gu Mingming did not know what difficulties he had, but she had given Oakley a chance to ask her for help. As long as he was willing to be honest with her, she would help him, wouldn't she? But he still chose to stand opposite her. She had to admit that Oakley's decision made Gu Mingming's heart turn cold. As friends, Gu Mingming would not leave him in the lurch. However, the relationship between them could only be described as friends. The familiar aroma of food wafted from downstairs. Gu Mingming's entire body had been rubbed by Elvis, and her blood had already circulated through her entire body. Gu Mingming felt refreshed. Stretching herself, she allowed Elvis to carry her downstairs. Leah looked up and smiled at Gu Mingming, his eyes curved into crescents. His fluffy and white tail swayed behind him, showing that he was in an extremely good mood. Scooping a bowl of food, he held a small wooden spoon and fed Gu Mingming mouthful by mouthful. Gu Mingming was already used to this kind of behavior. Every time she went to see the beast deity, she would sleep for a few days, and the first meal after waking up would always be Leah feeding her personally. It was as if this was the only way he could ensure that she was full and feel at ease. This seemed like some kind of obsessive-compulsive disorder. But it was not a big deal, so Gu Mingming did not intend to correct him. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Gu Mingming then asked, "Where are Hutta and his brothers? Where did they run off to?" Leah replied, "They went hunting with Burke, saying that they wanted to prepare more food for Burke's old tribe. That way, Burke would not have to suffer too much when we leave." "Aren't there 2 other females in the old tribe? Haven't they found a new partner after so long?" Gu Mingming asked casually. Leah chuckled and said, "The males of the Snow Fox tribe will not marry with females from other tribes. If their entire tribe returned to Saint Nazir with us, there might still be hope. But here, that tribe's old, weak, sick and handicapped can only be taken care of by Burke alone." Gu Mingming did not say anything else and just nodded silently. It was good to let the 3 little ones help their master Burke. After all, Gu Mingming owed him for what happened previously. Even though Cole had plotted to implicate him, it was an undeniable fact that she had also made use of Burke. Perhaps keeping her away from Borg would help him the most. Otherwise, Who knew if Cole's next target would be him? Oh yes, Elvis told me that you have regained control of Sauter, Gu Mingming said. Leah washed a fruit and passed it to Gu Mingming. Seeing how she took a bite with her cheeks puffed up like a cute little squirrel, he could not help but smile. Then he nodded and said, "Yeah, after all, I am the 9th highness of the Snow Fox tribe. Those old foxes want to maintain the honor of their tribe, so they will not let me be under a lynx. So all I did was refuse their offer, and they pushed me to the pinnacle of power." Heh, the human heart is the easiest thing to grasp. Gu Mingming asked, "What did they suggest to you?" Chapter 902. Gu Mingming stared at Leah with her eyes wide open. "You agreed?" Leah chuckled seductively. He pinched Gu Mingming's little face. "Didn't I say that I just didn't reject?" Huh. Gu Mingming didn't understand. Didn't rejecting mean he agreed? Leah leaned forward and pressed his lips against Gu Mingming's left ear. Not taking the initiative, not rejecting, not taking responsibility. Gu Mingming instinctively blurted out. "Scumbag." Leah shrugged his shoulders and chuckled. Wouldn't it be extremely foolish to treat those old foxes with a kind and beautiful heart? Gu Mingming thought about it. Those old foxes in Sauter would only think about their own benefits. When had they ever treated Leah with any sincerity? When Cole set up a trap to harm Leah, they acted like everyone was kicking him when he was down. None of them stood up to speak up for Leah. After that, when Leah chased Cole away, they acted like the monkeys would scatter when the tree was down. They completely forgot how they had relied on Cole to do whatever he wanted all these years. Now raising such conditions to Leah meant that he must have already made a deal with Cole, sacrificing Oakley in exchange for a more advantageous situation. No one should laugh at anyone. No one should look down on anyone. After all, no one was that much nobler than anyone else. They could make use of Leah. Why couldn't Leah make use of them? Leah pecked Gu Mingming's little face. "Leave these things to me. Don't worry about it." Gu Mingming nodded. "I don't want to care about government affairs. It's too troublesome. What I want to ask is, which female in the tribe has the highest purity of fox seductive fragrance?" Leah shifted his body backward to create some distance between him and Gu Mingming. He scrutinized Gu Mingming's little face. His smile gradually spread. "So the beast deity taught you the bewitching technique?" Gu Mingming nodded in acknowledgement. Leah lowered his head and chuckled. He covered his lips and his gaze shifted. Gu Mingming was confused by Lee's gaze. "What's wrong?" Leah didn't say anything. He just shifted his gaze upwards and met Elvis's eyes. Gu Mingming followed Lee's gaze to Elvis. She realized that Elvis's face was so red that it was about to bleed. "Hubby, are you not feeling well?" Elvis coughed twice and turned his face away. Gu Mingming found it very strange and turned to ask Leah, "Don't keep me guessing, what happened?" Leah rested his chin on one hand and looked at Elvis. "Sigh, first partner Elvis, the head of our family is asking me a question. Can I answer it or not?" Gu Mingming could clearly see the teasing look on Lee's face. Although she did not know what it was, to make Elvis blush, she was still very interested to know. The burning spirit of gossip lit up Gu Mingming's eyes. She secretly rubbed her palms together and said, "Tell me quickly, I will back you up. What are you afraid of?" Leah deliberately nodded his head slowly, his large tail swaying behind him. That look was very despicable. Stretching out his index finger, Leah lifted Gu Mingming's chin gently. His long and affectionate eyes stared at Gu Mingming's bright eyes as he said in a low voice, "The purest fox seductive fragrance in this world belongs to you." Chapter 903. Leah nodded and smiled ambiguously. "Didn't you realize what you inherited from me?" Gu Mingming was stunned for 2 seconds before turning to look behind her. Disappointment. Gu Mingming pouted. "No," Leah knocked Gu Mingming's head. "What do you mean by such a disappointed expression? You don't like the fox seductive fragrance you inherited from me?" Gu Mingming shook her head. Didn't you say that the fox seductive fragrance is emitted from the tail? But I don't have a tail. Leah chuckled. The fox seductive fragrance of males is emitted from the tail. For females, it's from. Leah was halfway through his sentence when his gaze shifted downwards. It stopped between Gu Mingming's legs. Gu Mingming's face flushed red. She used both her hands to block Lee's line of sight. Perverted. Leah waved his hand and held onto Gu Mingming's slender wrist. I'm perverted just by looking at you through your skirt? Then what does it count as if I saw you without a skirt on? And I even ate you before. What does it count as? Lee's words made Gu Mingming extremely embarrassed and furious. But damn it, her body actually reacted when she recalled that night of lust. Leah raised his eyebrows. The corners of his lips curled upwards. My baby Gu Mingming sent me an invitation. So you want it now? No. Gu Mingming retracted her hand shyly. She felt too ashamed to face anyone. So she buried her face into Elvis's chest. But what did she see when she lowered her head? A small tent erected by a beast-skin skirt could accommodate a circus. Damn it. Gu Mingming jumped up from Elvis's arms. She took 2 steps back and sat at the corner of the wall. She laughed dryly at Elvis and Leah. She had an expression that said, "Don't come any closer. If you come any closer, I'll scream." Leah laughed. I have a certain immunity to the fox seductive fragrance. So it's not much of an effect. But someone. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis. She realized that his face had turned even redder. She suddenly thought of something. She laughed dryly. So how did you find out that I inherited the fox seductive fragrance? Leah looked at Elvis and said, Great first partner, do you want to personally reenact the process of your cheating? Cheating. Gu Mingming's face was filled with disbelief. Elvis would cheat? She didn't believe it. But Elvis, what was the meaning of not explaining and blushing instead? Leah pulled Elvis's left hand up and waved it in front of Gu Mingming, saying, Here, this is that mistress. Mingming, do you want me to chop it? Ugh. Gu Mingming paused for 3 seconds before bursting out in laughter. So you're saying that I released the fox seductive fragrance when I was unconscious? Elvis couldn't resist it, and had some indescribable interaction with his left hand? Yeah. Leah nodded. He only agreed to a single room, but it made Elvis so embarrassed that his face was about to bleed. Gu Mingming held back her laughter and crawled towards Elvis on all fours like a Persian cat. She placed her hand on his chest and pushed lightly, causing Elvis to fall onto the ground. His entire body stiffened as he stared at Gu Mingming, who was messing around on his chest. She clearly knew that he was going crazy, but she still continued to ignite the fire, making him feel even more uncomfortable. Chapter 904. Gu Mingming pressed her lips gently against Elvis's, and did not pull away. She allowed Elvis to take the initiative and deepen the kiss. After a long while, when both of them were short of breath, Elvis finally let go of her. Just as he was about to flip over and press her down to do something indescribable, Gu Mingming chuckled and said, Now you can already resist the fox seductive fragrance, unless I wake it up with a kiss. Elvis was stunned for a moment. Then he felt that the fire in his body seemed to be subsiding bit by bit. That bewitched and irrational feeling gradually returned. His heartbeat returned to normal, and his breathing gradually calmed down as well. Looking at Gu Mingming, who was being pressed down by him, Elvis frowned and asked, What happened? Gu Mingming smiled and sat up with her arms around Elvis's neck. I tried the bewitching spell to give you an extra insurance, in case someone uses the fox seductive fragrance to abduct you while I'm asleep. Torturous. Elvis clenched his teeth. The fire in his body was forcefully extinguished. He was really annoyed but could not bear to bite her. He flipped over and sat up, hugging her in his arms. Sighing helplessly, he returned to the topic at hand. You have the purest fox seductive fragrance on you and you've learned the bewitching spell. So when do you plan to treat Sandy? Gu Mingming rubbed her brows and said hesitantly, Sandy is pregnant now and it's not suitable for her to travel long distances. If I remove the bewitching spell on her now, she will definitely reveal herself. I'm afraid that Cole will use more violent methods to deal with her next time. So I want to wait until she gives birth before removing the bewitching spell. Then, I will send her back to Saint Nazir to avoid Cole. Will Cole let her go so easily? Elvis expressed his doubts. Gu Mingming lowered her head and chuckled. Someone who has been lonely for an entire winter should be coming to find me soon. Elvis thought for a moment and laughed as well. You want Wabi to escort Sandy back? Gu Mingming nodded. But Elvis said, aren't you afraid that he will eat Sandy when he's in a bad mood? Gu Mingming shrugged. I'll just say that Snake asked him to help me protect Sandy. In that case, he would rather eat himself than eat Sandy. All right. With Wabi holding the fort in Saint Nazir, it will be difficult for Cole to extend his hand there. Elvis nodded in approval of Gu Mingming's plan. Leah, however, raised his face and placed his hands behind his back. He leaned his upper body backward and said, I don't think so. Gu Mingming looked at Leah with a questioning gaze. Leah said, how could Cole not be prepared for anything that we can think of? I'm afraid that Wabi has already fallen into his trap. Getting Wabi to escort Sandy might be part of his plan. Gu Mingming's heart sank. That's right, how could a person like Cole forget about Wabi? Besides, even if we send Sandy away, what can we do? Unless you can hide all the people you care about, he will always have a way to scheme against you one by one. So, I'm afraid hiding Sandy is not a good idea. Leah held on to Gu Mingming's little hand and said, it's safer to protect your own weak spot in your own arms. You mean you want me to keep Sandy by my side and protect her myself? Chapter 905. But Sandy. Gu Mingming was still very worried. Leah pinched Gu Mingming's little nose and said, have you forgotten that Cole and I are now in a cooperative relationship? If we want to let bygones be bygones and cooperate seamlessly, we should at least show some sincerity. What do you think? Gu Mingming frowned, not understanding what he meant. Leah smiled and said, I will go talk to him and ask him to undo the bewitching spell on Sandy. Gu Mingming was surprised and asked, he will listen to you? Leah said, if he knows that you have the purest fox seductive fragrance and have learned the bewitching spell, even if he does not understand, you can undo it yourself. Do you think he will? Gu Mingming thought about it and understood Li's meaning. If Gu Mingming did not have the fox seductive fragrance and did not know the bewitching spell, she would be begging for mercy if she went to Cole. But Gu Mingming now had the purest fox seductive fragrance and had learned the bewitching spell. If she went to Cole now, she would be giving him a chance to show his loyalty. Of course Cole would not give up. Nodding, Gu Mingming asked, then what should I do? Leah swayed his tail and smiled. Nothing. Giving him a chance to express his loyalty doesn't mean that you have to accept it. Gu Mingming laughed and poked at Li's brows. You are so naughty, but I like it. Gu Mingming felt much more relaxed now that she had a direction to resolve Oakley's and Sandy's matters. At dinner time, the three little ones returned to the stone castle after playing around. They were all stunned when they saw Gu Mingming, before quickly pouncing into her arms. Gu Mingming looked at the three little ones and her mood strangely improved. The three of them were clearly only slightly over a year old, but in their half-work state, they looked like 8 or 9-year-old kids. They looked young but not like 2 or 3-year-old kids. It was a small pity that Gu Mingming had never seen her own children in swaddling clothes. They had maturity that did not match their age, and this made up for Gu Mingming's other regrets. Let's go find your mother-in-law and have dinner together, all right? Gu Mingming was still worried about Sandy. When the three little ones heard this, a trace of resistance and awkwardness appeared on their faces. They took 2 steps back and said with some hesitation, Mom, it's better if you don't go. Why? Gu Mingming remembered that they had a very good relationship with Sandy, put aside and replied, Mother-in-law's thoughts are in a mess now, if you go over. You have to be prepared to keep explaining that Qi Xian is the child of you and Cole, as well as twist the facts to prove that you and Cole are partners. Gu Mingming's head started to hurt too, but Sandy was pregnant now, and her mind was sensitive. If she was left alone to let her imagination run wild, It would not be good for her and the fetus. Moreover, she was her first child, so there was no room for any mistakes. Looking at Elvis and Leah, she said helplessly, "The scene might be a little awkward. Do you guys want to accompany me?" Elvis stood up and hugged Gu Mingming in his arms. "I will accompany you." Leah also stood up and patted the dust off his body. "Then I will go and see Cole. If I can convince him, I will bring him to Sandy to remove the bewitching spell." Chapter 906. When Gu Mingming arrived at Sandy's house, she saw Bode preparing food for Sandy. Colin was squatting at the door pitifully, turning his head to look into the house from time to time. It was obvious that he had been chased out. When he saw Gu Mingming, Colin was taken aback for a moment before he suddenly stood up and ran over. He looked at Gu Mingming expectantly and asked, "Is there a solution?" Gu Mingming did not reply and just patted Colin's shoulder. She then jumped down from Elvis's arms and led the three little ones into Sandy's stone house. The males in the house were all very cautious. Sandy sat at the corner of the bed with his face facing the wall, obviously not intending to talk to anyone. Gu Mingming gestured for them to keep quiet. Sandy's males nodded and did not dare to say a word. Gu Mingming walked to Sandy's back and placed her little hand on Sandy's shoulder gently. The moment she touched it, Sandy flung her shoulder fiercely and said angrily, "Don't touch me. You liars, don't touch me." Gu Mingming laughed out loud and placed both her hands on Sandy's shoulders. She then leaned close to Sandy's ear and whispered, "Who is so daring to lie to my little Sandy baby? MMM." Sandy was taken aback. When she turned around and saw that it was Gu Mingming, she finally relaxed and smiled. She turned around and pulled Gu Mingming's little hand to sit beside her. Seeing the three little ones standing in a row with the males in the house, not daring to come close to her, Sandy felt very wronged again. She twitched her lips and said, "Even you guys want to treat me like this?" The three little ones shook their heads in unison, but did not say a word. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "All right, go and play with Uncle Colin. Don't disturb me from chatting with your mother-in-law." The three little ones felt as if they had been pardoned and ran out with a grin. Sandy felt wronged and looked at Gu Mingming with watery eyes. "Gu Mingming, what do you think I should do? Why can't I understand some things?" Gu Mingming gently smoothed out the frown on Sandy's forehead. "Haven't you heard of pregnancy making you stupid for 3 years?" "Huh." Sandy was dumbfounded. Then he nodded, indicating that he had never heard of it before. Gu Mingming smiled and said, "You have to give a portion of your intelligence to your babies now. The dumber you are, the more intelligence you give to your babies and the smarter they will be. This is a good thing. It proves that my godson will be clever and lovely children in the future." Oh. Sandy listened to Gu Mingming's nonsense with a serious face and agreed with her. Gu Mingming did not feel guilty for lying to a pregnant lady and continued, "What can't you figure out? Ask me." "Well, it's been less than 3 years since I gave birth, and my IQ isn't very high right now, but I'm still willing to use my few remaining brain cells to answer your questions. Say it. What do you want to know?" Sandy pursed her lips and said, "You and Cole haven't reconciled yet." As expected, everything that Sandy could not understand definitely revolved around Cole. Gu Mingming nodded. "I don't intend to reconcile with him." Chapter 907. Gu Mingming pretended to be in deep thought and did not speak for a long while. Looking at Sandy's worried expression, she suddenly smiled and nodded. All right. Since my precious Sandy is pleading for him, I will not abandon him." Cole was not Gu Mingming's partner. Even if she wanted to abandon him, she could not. So Gu Mingming did not lie to Sandy. Sandy heaved a sigh of relief and continued, "Gu Mingming, I think I know why you are angry. But I just can't remember why you and Cole fought to the extent that you are not allowing him to return home. Also, Qixian is a wolf and Cole is a fox. Why do I remember that Qixian is your and Cole's child?" Gu Mingming chuckled. "This is what you can't figure out." Sandy blinked innocently. as if waiting for Gu Mingming to clear her doubts. Gu Mingming tilted her head with a smile. I am the daughter of the beast deity. I have the genes of hundreds of beasts in my body. Of course, the children I give birth to will mostly depend on their father's race. But there is also a chance that they will inherit my genes. Huda and his brothers inherited their genes from Elvis, but Qixuan inherited mine. Well, who knows, I might have a few little bears with Leah next time. Ah. Sandy stared at Gu Mingming in bewilderment. Really? Gu Mingming nodded earnestly. I am such an awesome person. I am someone who can fly 90,000 miles into the sky. What? Sandy did not understand. Gu Mingming chuckled. It means that I can fly into the sky at any time and stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun. Sandy burst out laughing. She tapped Gu Mingming's brow and said, I've spoiled your ability. Gu Mingming also laughed out loud. Is there anything else you can't figure out? Ask me all at once. I will answer you. Sandy felt much better now that she had resolved the issue of Cole and Qixuan's relationship. It was as if Gu Mingming had smashed a huge rock that had been pressing down on her heart. She felt much more relaxed. Her tone also became lighter. You still haven't told me why you quarreled with Cole to the extent that you are not allowing him to return home. Gu Mingming thought for a while and said, Ellie, do you still remember? Sandy nodded to show that he remembered. Gu Mingming said in disdain, I found out that he and Ellie had an affair. What? Sandy slammed the table and stood up, glaring angrily at him. Gu Mingming did not doubt that if Cole was standing there, Sandy would rush forward and fight him to the death. Gu Mingming tugged at Sandy's arm and said, calm down, calm down. You're a pregnant woman, so you need to know how to control your emotions. It's not good for the baby to be overjoyed or angry. Sandy gritted his teeth and sat down. How dare he? Gu Mingming shrugged and said, catching an adulterer in bed, use shoes make a pair. I saw it with my own eyes, how can it be wrong? No wonder you were so angry that you didn't want him anymore. How shameless. Sandy was infuriated. She wanted to curse, but she suddenly realized that she had no words to describe her disgust. Gu Mingming patted Sandy's back to calm her down. Now do you know why he only told you that he angered me and asked you to help him plead for leniency, but did not tell you what he did wrong? Chapter 908. Gu Mingming could not stop giggling. This was the difference between Sandy and Oakley. Even if Sandy was hypnotized, Gu Mingming was still the most important person in her heart. Gu Mingming tugged at the indignant Sandy and pointed at Colin with her chin. Now do you understand why they all said Cole is not my partner? Sandy bit her lower lip and nodded. Cole did such a thing and all the males are ashamed of him. They are naturally unwilling to talk about his dirty deeds. Moreover, Colin was once your guard. Even in front of me, he still has to protect your image. I misunderstood Colin. Gu Mingming nodded. So, can we let Colin go home now? Sandy blushed. Colin, I am thirsty. I want to drink water. Colin's ears had been pricking up. He was stunned by Gu Mingming's nonsense. Sometimes he almost suspected that Gu Mingming was speaking the truth. So in terms of bluffing, no one could beat Gu Mingming. When he heard Sandy call his name, Colin gave Gu Mingming a thumbs up in his heart. She was indeed the great messenger. She had a glib tongue and her teeth were as sharp as steel. Coming. Colin used the small bamboo cup that Gu Mingming had given Sandy previously to fill a cup of water, and passed it to her. His honest face had a flattering smile, and his voice was filled with flattery. Drink slowly, don't choke. Sandy drank a small cup. She then looked at Colin with a red face. This winter, you have suffered. I will make it up to you. Gu Mingming almost choked on her own saliva. Just by looking at Sandy and Colin's expressions, she knew what she meant by make it up to him. Then I will bring the 3 little ones back first. I think you guys should be quite busy too. Gu Mingming felt that she could not stay any longer. Otherwise, what if Sandy and Colin pulled her over to chat while having fun? The beast world was so open to such matters. Sandy would definitely do such a thing. Accompany me for a while more. Sandy held Gu Mingming's little hand and begged. Gu Mingming smiled as she rubbed Sandy's little head. You better accompany Colin. I will return to the territory first. I'll come and see you tomorrow, okay? Sandy glanced at Colin shyly before nodding her head, before reluctantly letting go of Gu Mingming's hand. When Gu Mingming walked past Colin, she patted his shoulder and said earnestly, I know you've been a vegetarian for the entire winter, but Sandy's tummy can't take any more torment. You be more gentle. With that, Gu Mingming walked out of the cave with a blushing face. Every time this happened, Gu Mingming would resent Snake for giving her a pair of sharp ears. She had already been running all the way, but she still could not shake off the mm sounds behind her. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming running out with the three little ones with a flushed face. Combined with the sounds coming from the cave, he instantly understood what was going on. So he did not ask any more questions, and just scooped Gu Mingming into his arms before striding away. When they returned to the stone castle, Leah was squatting at the entrance, resting his chin on his hands as he stared at their way back in boredom. Chapter 909. Gu Mingming was taken aback. She looked at Leah and frowned. She felt that there was something wrong with Leah, but she could not pinpoint what was wrong. She sized Leah up, met his long and affectionate eyes, and then looked at his pretentious and sly look. Gu Mingming smiled self-mockingly. Perhaps it was because she was scared of Cole's schemes that she saw something wrong with everything. After dispelling her suspicions, Gu Mingming asked, You met Cole? Leah nodded as a reply. Gu Mingming asked again, What did he say? Leah said nonchalantly, He made a deal with me. As long as I give him one thing, he promised to remove Sandy's bewitching spell and never find trouble with her again. Oh. Gu Mingming raised her brows with an unfriendly expression. She asked nervously, What does he want from you? Leah shook his head and said, I can't tell you now. You will know when the time comes. Gu Mingming frowned and said with a serious expression, You remember what you promised me, right? Leah nodded and held Gu Mingming's hand to kiss it. He said, Don't worry, I know what I am doing. Elvis, and I will not do anything that will make you sad. Gu Mingming nodded and did not say another word. The three young ones requested Gu Mingming to look for Burke in front of the stone castle. Gu Mingming agreed. So in the huge stone castle, there were only Elvis, Leah and Gu Mingming. Elvis started a fire and Gu Mingming said she was hungry, so she asked Leah to roast some meat for her. Lee's actions were skilled, and he quickly roasted the meat. Gu Mingming took the roasted meat and slowly brought it to her mouth. She looked at Lee's expectant gaze but paused before biting into it. I can't pretend anymore. Gu Mingming threw the roasted meat away without a trace of a smile on her face. She looked coldly at the person sitting opposite her and said, Cole, don't tell me you think I would recognize my own man wrongly? The person sitting opposite Gu Mingming was stunned for a moment. He held his forehead and smiled bitterly. He shook his head helplessly and said, I knew you would see through me, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. Can you tell me, where is the flaw this time? Speechless, Gu Mingming said, Can you remove this illusion for me first? Seeing you use Lee's face to talk to me makes me very angry. Cole tugged at his hair and said innocently, You want to hit me but can't bear to? Gu Mingming ignored him and turned to look at Elvis. Hubby in your eyes, who is he? Elvis Cole. Gu Mingming nodded, then stood up and retreated to one side, saying, Then beat him up. Elvis did not reply and just stood up silently. His aura was fully unleashed, and his killing intent was unbridled. Cole waved his hand and said, All right, don't be angry. I will answer your question first, all right? Gu Mingming leaned into Elvis's arms and crossed her arms in front of her chest, not saying a word. Elvis caught Gu Mingming in tacit understanding and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. He instantly retracted his killing intent and just stared coldly at Cole. Cole was still sitting at the same spot and had no intention of getting up. He just said, I proposed a deal with him. Let me be Leah for a day and I will remove the bewitching spell on Sandy. Then, I will never find trouble with her and use her to threaten you again. But Leah rejected my proposal, so I could only use other methods to temporarily keep him in the meeting room. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Susu continued to save chapters with all her might. Chapter 9-10. What did you do to Leah? Gu Mingming gritted her teeth and asked. Cole smiled but did not answer. Instead he asked, Then, now it's your turn to answer my question. Let me be Leah for a day. At this time tomorrow, I will remove the bewitching spell from that half-orc female and return the real Leah to you. How about that? Are you in on this deal? Gu Mingming took a step forward. The Beast King's pressure had already started to spread around her. Her face was dark and gloomy. It was frighteningly cold. I am asking you, what did you do to Leah? Faced with Gu Mingming's anger, an instinctive fear spread throughout Cole's body. And this fear of death made him unusually excited. So you have decided to kill me? Cole smiled sinisterly. I knew it. I knew you and I are the same kind. Anyone who obstructs us deserves to die. Killing to stop killing is the way to rule the world. Come, my dear master. Please do whatever you want to me. Whip me and then kill me. It is my honor to be the first skeleton on your journey to greatness. With that, Cole opened his arms wide and looked at Gu Mingming with an expectant and longing gaze. Gu Mingming could not bear to kill him. She was disgusted. She just wanted to kill someone, not play some perverted S&M game with Cole. Why the hell was he so excited? Gu Mingming had goosebumps all over her body. She frowned and took a step back in disgust. It was as if Cole had some weird infectious disease on his body. Let me? Elvis tilted his head and asked Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming touched her left ear gently. The mark on her ear was still there, and she did not feel any discomfort. She knew that as long as Leah was in danger or suffered from serious injuries, her mark would feel pain. And if Leah died, the mark on her ear would also disappear. Now that the mark was fine and did not feel anything strange, it meant that Leah was at least safe. From what Cole had said just now, he had already predicted that he would be exposed. But he still came. Then, it could only mean that he had nothing to fear. In other words, if she really killed Cole, Leah would be the first to die with him. Qixian would be the second. In that case, Oakley and Sandy would not be able to escape. In order to kill a pervert, he had to sacrifice 4 of his closest friends. This was not a good deal. Gu Mingming took a deep breath and sat back by the fire. She stared coldly at Cole and said, Keep your perverted face to yourself. You're disgusting me. Cole looked at Gu Mingming in disappointment. You're not killing me again? Gu Mingming snorted coldly and said, You have all the people important to me in your hands. Aren't you trying to coerce me into not being able to kill you? Why are you pretending to be eager to die now? If you really want to die, then return my people. As long as they are safe, I will fulfill your wish to die. There are thousands of ways to die for you to choose. I guarantee that you'll die, and I guarantee that you'll die. If you don't die, you'll die for free. Cole chuckled and said, So you thought that I gathered them to save my life? Gu, you don't understand me. Gu Mingming frowned and did not comment. Chapter 9-11. As long as you kill them, you will no longer have any weaknesses. Nothing in this world will be able to threaten you. You will be the supreme deity, the most perfect ruler. Cole said those crazy words with a face full of longing. It was as if the blood-stained world had already appeared in front of him. The smell of blood had already surrounded him, and he could feel the blood in his entire body boiling. Gu Mingming was really speechless. The person in front of her was a lunatic and should be locked up in a mental hospital for treatment. If you want to rule the world so much, you can just do it yourself. Why must I do it? Cole looked at Gu Mingming bitterly. His eyes flickered with endless resentment. You are my master. How can you be ruled by me? I am not your master. Don't call me by such a disgusting name. Gu Mingming's attitude was clearly filled with disgust and disdain. Cole did not seem to mind Gu Mingming's disgust. Instead, he looked as if he was enjoying it. All right, I will not call you master anymore. I will only call you Gu. Gu Mengmeng was so disgusted that she wanted to beat him up. But the price of killing this fellow was too high. I will endure. Gu, I have already answered one of your questions. Isn't it time for you to answer me? Cole grinned at Gu Mengmeng. How did you know that I am not Leah? Where did I go wrong? I clearly imitated him very well. Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath and said in an extremely disdainful tone. Imitated? How so? You are a fake from head to toe. Unless I am blind, I can't tell. Cole smacked his lips. He had a helpless expression on his face. He looked down at himself and shook his head with a smile. A fake can imitate the original perfectly. But if the original imitates a fake, it will be nondescript. TSK, it is indeed not advisable to go against the flow. But can you tell me which detail made you so sure that I am a fake? Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes. Leah does not hide any secrets from me. As long as I ask, he will definitely tell me the truth. Leah will never tell me things like, I can't tell you for the time being. Cole nodded and said, I see. Gu Mengmeng said, since everything is out in the open now, can you remove this facade? I'm really annoyed when I see you bearing Lee's face. Cole shook his head and said, so you don't intend to accept my suggestion? Sandy's bewitchment. It's fine even if you don't understand, I'll remove this illusion. Gu Mengmeng narrowed her eyes. Are you threatening me? Cole thought for a moment and nodded. I guess so. So, what do you plan to choose? Will you accept my threat? Should I endure the fire in my heart, or give up on removing Sandy's bewitching spell? Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and asked instead of answering. Didn't Leah tell you that I can also use bewitching spells and that I'm better at it than you? Cole nodded and said he did. With that, Cole looked at Elvis and said, I have also personally witnessed your abilities. Gu Mengmeng also turned back to look at Elvis and understood that Cole was referring to Elvis not being bewitched by the illusion. It was just a small experiment on Elvis as insurance, but she did not expect it to be used so soon. Chapter 9:12. No, it's the exact opposite. Cole maintained his usual smile, with a tinge of elegance but more of craftiness and maliciousness, as though everything was within his calculations. He said with certainty and confidence, it is precisely because I never dared to underestimate Gu that the bewitching spell I placed on Sandy is a dead knot. Unless I personally remove it, otherwise, even if I use a stronger power to stack the bewitching spell, it will still trigger the bewitching spell I placed on Sandy and she will die on the spot. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She frowned and her heart twitched. Luckily, she did not recklessly remove Sandy's hypnosis spell today, but came up with a lie to fool her. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. At this point, Gu Mengmeng's gaze towards Cole was filled with even more hatred. She said coldly, how can I be sure that you are not lying to me? Cole seemed to be pondering over this question. But he suddenly smiled and said, when have I ever lied to the great messenger? When they kidnapped the little wolves, she was the one who voluntarily came to ask for help. He said that Ellie and a 5th-level master kidnapped the little wolves, but he never denied that the master was him. The wound on his chest was caused by Ellie's bite, and it was true that the little wolves were brought back to the Snake King Valley. He had only lured her into the trap step by step, but he had never told her a lie in the real sense. Ha! How could it be so ironic? He was a scumbag who was despised by Gu Mengmeng to the point of being useless, yet he still had a fine quality of honesty. You schemed so hard to scheme against Sandy just to be Leah for a day? Gu Mengmeng felt that this was very strange, wasn't it? Cole nodded and said, I'm just very curious, what made that trash who only knows how to struggle in the mud, bare his teeth and clamor, break free from my shackles? I also want to experience life after letting go of my hatred. And what exactly is left of it? Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists. Leah had told her before that Cole's interest was not in killing, but in torturing others. She suddenly felt that Jiaoya's words were too true. A normal person would never win against a lunatic. He would pull you into his vicious thinking cycle, then use his rich experience to defeat you. After all, he was really crazy, while you still had your rationality and a bottom line. Gu Mingming leaned into Elvis's arms and said, "If you want to know, you have to let go of your hatred and try. No matter how well you imitate him, you are not Leah. Not to mention one day. Even if you were given a lifetime, you would never know what he had and what he had obtained." "Who knows?" Cole chuckled. "I just want to try. Great emissary, are you willing to discuss this deal with me? I will only be Leah for one day. Tomorrow, I will completely return Sandy to you." Gu Mingming smiled and said, "Ha, but Leah never makes me wait for the things I want. If it was Leah, he would not let me worry because of Sandy. As long as he could do it, he would immediately remove the bewitching spell on Sandy. What about you? If it's for me, can you do it too?" Cole deeply agreed with Gu Mingming's words. He smiled at Gu Mingming, his gaze filled with indulgence and love. "I can do anything for Gu." With that, Cole stood up and walked to Gu Mingming's side. He reached out to hold Gu Mingming's hand, but was blocked by Elvis. He said coldly, "Do you want to die?" Chapter 9:13. Cole clenched his fists and smiled. "You cannot challenge the authority of the first partner. It is a family rule. I got carried away for a moment. I apologize." Elvis ignored him. Follow the family rules? Cole was not qualified to do so. Gu Mingming returned, but Sandy and Colin's entanglement had not ended. When she walked near them, Gu Mingming's face was full of awkwardness. She was so anxious to hypnotize Sandy that she had forgotten about the matter of compensating Colin. "How about tomorrow?" Gu Mingming hugged Elvis's neck and asked. Elvis knew how worried Gu Mingming was for Sandy, and Cole was a dangerous and uncertain factor. Who knew if he would disappear after saying that he was willing to remove the bewitching spell for Sandy? No need. With that, Elvis shrugged his shoulders and started emitting the pressure of a 5th-level orc. Cole was taken aback at first. Xianji smiled and rotated his neck, also starting to emit his beast pressure. Gu Mingming did not understand what was going on at first until she saw Colin stumbling out of the stone house. That expression was really amazing. Gu Mingming was even more embarrassed than before. Damn it. Would Colin get sick from being forcefully interrupted? Won't it affect Sandy's happiness for the rest of her life? Gu Mingming felt a little guilty. Elvis did not mind and said, "If Colin can't do it, don't we still have Bode and the rest? Don't worry, Sandy will not feel aggrieved." Puffed. There was such a benefit to having more husbands. There was a backup. Looking at Colin, Gu Mingming said guiltily, "Colin, I've wronged you." Elvis did not bother about Colin at all. He estimated that Bode and the rest had cleaned up Sandy and directly walked in. When he passed by Colin, he said, "In order to protect Sandy's life, not to mention impotence, even if we skin him alive, he would not even frown." Colin was speechless when he heard Elvis's words. Elvis was stunned. Gu Mingming did not say anything else, and just followed Elvis to the door of the stone house. Bode and Sandy's other partners each supported Sandy out. Sandy looked at Gu Mingming with a blushing face and asked shyly, "Gu Mingming, are you looking for me?" Gu Mingming really felt that it was immoral to interrupt him at this moment, so she was at a loss for words and did not know how to reply. Seeing that Gu Mingming did not reply, Sandy looked to her side and saw Cole. Because she had Cole's bewitching spell on her, Cole's current disguise was ineffective in front of her. Her large, watery eyes immediately lost all traces of innocence. She pulled Gu Mingming from Elvis's arms and used her as a shield. Her bare claws immediately flashed out. She glared at Cole and Elvis with wariness and hatred. "Elvis, I didn't expect you to be such a person. My Gu Mingming is really blind. Why did she choose you as her first partner back then?" Gu Mingming and Elvis were dumbfounded. Why didn't they scold Cole but Elvis? If it was someone else flashing their claws so arrogantly in front of Elvis today, Elvis would definitely break that person's neck before he could even finish saying his name. However, the person in front of him was someone he couldn't afford to offend. Not for any other reason but because if this crazy bear died, Xiaoming would definitely be sad. However, he could tolerate her arrogance but he could not tolerate one thing. You're Gu Mingming? Chapter 9:14. Sandy was usually timid and adorable, but when she got serious, she was not weak at all. She was willing to risk her life for Gu Mingming. Disregarding the fact that she was pregnant, she glared at Elvis with a "if you want to touch Gu Mingming, you have to do it over my dead body" attitude, not giving in at all. Bode and Colin were so scared that their calves were cramping up, afraid that Elvis would rashly slap them with his claws. That would be the end of one corpse. But Sandy did not care at all. She stood in front of Elvis and Leah like a mother hen protecting her chicks. Stiffening her neck, she said, "Yes, it's mine. So what?" With that, she pointed a bare claw at Cole and said furiously, "This scum did something shameless with Ellie. As Gu Mingming's first partner, why didn't you kill him? You actually allowed him to wander around Gu Mingming and disgust her. From this, it can be seen that you don't care about Gu Mingming at all. Even if you don't cherish her, I will. As long as I, Sandy, have a bite to eat, I will not let my Gu Mingming starve. You two shameless bastards get lost." Elvis's face turned green and white from Sandy's scolding. He gritted his teeth and looked at the little person hiding behind Sandy, who was gloating at his misfortune. Seeing how she was smiling so widely that her eyes were curved into a line, but she was still trying her best to hold it in. Just like a silent phone with the vibration mode switched on. That smug look on her face instantly extinguished the fire in Elvis's chest. How long had it been since she last smiled like this? It seemed like she had not done any pranks ever since Snake died. He had not seen that sly and mischievous smile on her face for a long time. Just based on that smile, he could tolerate Sandy's scolding no matter how harsh it was. Moreover, although Elvis felt that it was unnecessary, he still treasured the friendship of having one more person who was willing to risk everything to protect Gu Mingming. In the worst-case scenario, even if Sandy did something even more rude today, so what? As long as Gu Mingming still treated Sandy as an important friend, Elvis would not do anything to hurt her. After his anger subsided, Elvis could only smile helplessly. He took a step to the side and circled behind Sandy to carry her in his arms. Then he signaled Colin and Bode to restrain Sandy, who was about to snatch her from his arms again, with a glance. He then said leisurely, "I brought him here today to let you seek justice for Xiao Meng. How do you think we should kill them? Come up with an idea, and I'll execute it." Sandy stopped struggling and looked at Elvis quietly, asking, "Really? Are you siding with that scumbag?" Elvis shook his head and said, "In this whole world, I will only side with Xiao Meng." "That's more like it." Sandy finally heaved a sigh of relief. She then turned around and stared at Cole fearlessly. "Let me tell Cole, just saying your name makes me feel disgusted. You and Ellie did that kind of thing, yet you still acted innocent and pitiful in front of me. You wanted to brush it off with a light sentence of "I did something wrong" and made her angry. I, Sandy, was blinded by lard to put in a good word for you in front of Gu Mingming. But now I know everything. Let me tell you, I will never help you again. If you still have a little bit of conscience, you should go to the platform of the deity's punishment and ask the beast deity to cleanse your dirty body and soul. Aside from the topic, Chapter 9:15. When had Cole ever been scolded like this before? Although he was not as respected as Big Brother and Leah, he was still the second highness of the messenger's tribe. Who would not be respectful in front of him? Even when his father was still alive, he had never reprimanded him like this. Sandy's scolding was a strange experience for him. He felt that he should be angry, but for some reason he could not be angry. Maybe, was it because he had grasped onto a very important piece of information? "Agu, you care a lot about the matter between Ellie and me? Are you jealous?" Cole's smile was filled with a sense of contentment. He tilted his head and looked past Sandy, landing his gaze on Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming did not know whether to laugh or cry. She had originally made up a lie to cover up the loophole in the bewitching spell that Cole had placed on Sandy. Now, it was hard for her to defend herself. Laughing dryly, Gu Mingming said, "Do what you have to do, don't care about those useless things." But Cole tapped his chin lightly with his finger and said, "But this is the first time I have been scolded in my entire life. After being scolded so harshly, I should at least get to the bottom of it, right? If what she said is true, then I am willing to be scolded. But if she is spreading rumors, why should I save someone who is slandering me?" From what he said, if she did not admit that she cared a lot about the matter between him and Ellie, he would not save Sandy. Gu Mingming was so angry that her teeth were itching, but she did not want to let him have his way. But Sandy could not just leave her be. If she were to overlay the hypnosis, it would cause harm to Sandy's body. Gu Mingming did not want to risk Sandy's safety. After weighing the pros and cons, Gu Mingming decided to say something against her will. She stared at Cole, trying hard to believe that the person in front of her was Leah. Just as she was about to speak, she saw a bare paw smack onto Cole's shoulder. Even Cole staggered from the slap and stumbled to the side. He stared at Sandy with a malicious gaze, his sharp claws and fangs flashing. Almost instantly, he instinctively attacked Sandy. Bode and Colin had been paying attention to Sandy's movements. Naturally, they had long discovered her movements, but it was too late to tell her not to act rashly. Thus, they could only make the most basic defensive response in an instant. Bode pulled Sandy back and protected her in his arms. He turned around and faced his back to Cole. Colin stood in front of Bode and used his own arm to catch Cole. After Colin and Sandy had mated, they were already third-level beasts. In the beast world, they were already considered to be above-average masters. Under normal circumstances, they were more than enough to protect a female. However, under normal circumstances, this did not include fighting against level 5 orcs. Even if Cole was a crippled beast, he had stayed at the peak of 5th level for so long. In addition to that, he had received Sauter's systematic training, and had fought many stray beasts in secret. His abilities, if they were to really fight, he would at least be on par with Elvis now. How could a level 3 Colin withstand it? With this slap, Colin's arm immediately folded up in a weird position. It looked like it was fractured. Gu Mingming was taken aback by the sudden turn of events and rushed to Colin 2 seconds too late. Colin was half a step away from Gu Mingming, and his nose was almost touching Cole's face to face. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.